Alright guys, I'd like to set some practice ground rules. Number 1, Nagisa, you gotta stop showing up high. I don't want to be a wet blanket, but really we have to focus when we're at practice. And I know that kind of thing can be really fun. One time I took too much children's Tylenol, and let me tell you, I was gone. Is any of this getting through to you? Nagisa, are you alright? Nagisa!
Oh, I disagree with this.
Nagisa! Haru, are you gonna let him keep doing this? Haru?
Yeah, Nagisa, you gotta stop doing that.
God damn it!
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Rollin' 20s. We are the crew that has tried Pamela Isley brand fertilizer and is now growing 30-pound potatoes. I am Jeremy.
And got way too much food.
What's your name, a-hole?
Jesse.
Remember, you can subscribe to this show and several others in the MSP library at missionstarpodcast.com. You can subscribe to us on iTunes and on Stitcher. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at the Rolling 20s. You heard music by Machine Supremacy. You can find their music largely for free download at machinesupremacy.com, as well as their latest couple of albums for sale on Amazon. The clip you heard at the beginning of the show was an interesting one that was part of a web series called 50% Off. It's a parody of the anime Free. You can find them for YouTube. It was created by Octopimp, and you can subscribe to his channel as well. How's the day? It sounded like a parrot was screaming over there.
That's his chair. Yeah.
It's way too early.
It is not. Way too early would be like 4 in the morning.
Alright, I went to bed way too late.
When was that?
After me,
4 in the morning?
3?
Oh. Yeah, I rarely see those numbers unless something really bizarre happened.
For me, I have not been able to go to sleep past 3 for some reason.
That's a little bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not much worth doing at that point in the morning. All you're doing is arguing with people who just don't like the build of your Gnome Warlord. But we'll get straight into what we got to do here. First off, in our Kickstarter corner, we have E-Depth Angel Anime. We've been following this for a little while by Mei Xing of Hillsborough, New Jersey. We've been discussing how they have a $47,000 goal, and the money just doesn't seem to be really accumulating like they would like. It turns out we were a little on the nose because the day after we discussed them last, they've canceled their Kickstarter.
Well.
Ended at 104 backers, $7,069 of a goal of $47,000. It was, in my opinion, it was just too many anime stereotypes all rolled into one show.
Yeah.
But that's just my humble opinion. We did find last week the Summons Project. Christopher Williams of Norristown, Pennsylvania, is creating a comic book called Summons about an ancient book falling into evil's hands and 3 unlikely warriors finding it before they are consumed by evil. That has 8 days to go and ends on May 19th. Has 158 backers. The goal is just $5,000. He currently has $6,092.
Awesome. Cool.
He's making this comic. I don't know if it would make it into the standard comic store, but this does look like a good independent book to seek out. His character designs are maybe slightly stereotypical, but still interesting, I would guess. Of course, that's all based on personal opinion.
It sounds unoriginal, but I'm sure it has something original with it.
Yeah, things like this always matter in the execution.
Mm-hmm.
As long as the dialogue isn't something to the point of evil shall not triumph, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
We also had the Kickstarter for the Comic Guardian. Alexandra Patchouli of Hoboken, New Jersey, is trying to create a new way to store comic books in binder form. And the goal was $10,000. Last time we checked in, they had $20.
Right.
They still have $20 because right after we discussed it, they canceled their Kickstarter.
Oh.
You know, it's one of those things where you have to have a fully functioning prototype. Having some plastic sheets or being held together by yellow and blue Ziploc ties is not helpful. It doesn't give people a full idea of what you're making.
Yeah, and it makes them worry that you don't quite have it.
Yeah. It wasn't. It's a well thought out idea, but without a full prototype, you're just grasping at straws. We also have Fourth Man, which is being done by David Rivera of Tucson, Arizona, about somebody who just wanted a cheeseburger and instead he has to save the world from robots, a madman, and an exiled warrior seeking redemption.
I hate it when that happens.
More often than you think. We have in-and-outs all over the state. You'd be surprised what happens out there. It has 31 days to go, has 10 backers. It has a goal of $1,100. It currently sits at $155.
Okay, I was going to say, wow, those 10 people are dedicated.
I backed up right at the last second there. It's not much money that he has, but he has a month to go. Mm-hmm. A little bit of advertising, a little bit of positive advertising, he'll get what he's looking for. Yeah. It's just a matter of if he does it.
I mean, I don't know what his pledge amounts are, but it's highly doable.
His higher amounts are his highest amount is $300, which says if you have a local comic store in the Tucson and Arizona area, you get 10 standard print, 10 variant print, 10 Force Man tees, an in-store autograph and sketch session with the book's creator, and you don't have to feed him, which all sounds well and good, except for the fact that 98% of the U.S. isn't in Tucson.
Mm.
So he might have to think about revising that a little bit. We also have the Chainsaw Incident, which is a hand-drawn, unique fighting game forged by the minds that brought you Tekken, Virtua Fighter, Soul Calibur, and more. Remember, it's by Origo Games, or Rigo Games of Baltimore, Maryland. I remember talking about this last week, and the minds of all those games turns out to be one mind as part of this team.
Right. And he's the third person announced. But
yeah, it's an interesting bit of advertising. But this one has 19 days to go. It ends on May 30th. It has 219 backers. The goal is $275,000. Currently sits at $21,718. I don't. Perhaps their form of advertising has come back to bite them a little bit. I'm saying perhaps because I can't say for sure.
Yeah.
They're obviously pulling down some money, but they're not pulling it down fast enough to keep the pace with the Kickstarter. They would need a real big infusion of cash in the short term.
Yeah.
We also have Fizz, The Surge of Video Games. It's a video game documentary using footage captured between 1989 and 1998. It's 90 minutes long and using unseen footage, including 22 interviews. This is being done by Jonathan Beals of London, UK. This Kickstarter ends on May 31st, has 20 days to go. They have 15 backers. The goal is £15,000. They have £460.
Wow.
Yeah. Interest in this one seems kind of low, but 89 to 98, that was kind of the renaissance when video games came out of the shameful nerd closet and started to actually hit pop culture.
Yeah.
It was an interesting era in video games. I don't know if maybe it's because it's a London project, because the UK puts out some pretty damn good movies every year and TV series. I don't know if it's because maybe the time period has passed by and most gamers of that generation already said, been there, done that, bye.
Yeah, I think I've said that already.
And we also have Keep the Gaming Era Going with Deadlands Gaming Center 2014 by Brandon Sorokin and Brandon Montgomery. You remember this discussion last week?
No.
This is about the two guys trying to open up a gaming center in Kentucky.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, well, this one is still going on. It has 5 days to go. It ends on Friday, May 16th. Has 2 backers. The goal is $10,000. They currently still have $501.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, we discussed before how there were some details that seem to be missing from this, from the amount they wanted to what they plan to pull off. And it just... I don't know. I understand Kentucky has a much lower housing property values than California. It still just sounds like something here is very undervalued. Because at $10,000, you can build 5 really good gaming computers.
Yeah.
So there's something to this picture I'm missing. We also have the manga and anime tabletop RPG. It is exactly what we described. Someone's coming up with a new anime-styled tabletop game. It's being done by Joe Bush of Aurora, Illinois. Has 19 days to go. It ends on May 30th. There are 40 backers. The goal is $2,000. They currently sit at $2,060.
Oh, right, we did it.
Yeah, there's going to be a new book-based game coming out. Now, whether or not they can get some of these stretch goals is going to be interesting. They have stretch goals at 4,000, 13, 14, 15, 20, 21, and 48,000. This may be a digitally based game because the 48,000 goal says physical printing. Real, live, hard, and softcover books added to reward list.
Yeah. It makes sense to do things digitally nowadays.
Yes, but I'm one of those people that digitally it's too easy for me to open up another browser, get distracted, and kind of get off on a tangent. When I have a book in front of me, I'm flipping through the book. I'm staring at the book, you know?
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I messed around all kinds of PDFs. It's a different experience holding the book in hand.
Because I can imagine a bunch of people sitting around with laptops trying to play this game, and every once in a while the game has stopped when someone just turns around their laptops and says, "Look, kitty video." Tick.
Yep, happens all the time.
And we have the World's Strongest Gamblers anime trailer by Andre Alexander Spence of New York, New York. This Kickstarter is just to put together a trailer of a series he would like to do. Maybe it's to help him put together a package for larger companies, I guess. But he currently has a Kickstarter with 24 days to go. It ends on June 5th. Has 12 backers. The goal is $25,000. Currently sits at $1,529. So it got a start, but I don't know if they'll be able to keep momentum. Some of the character designs are interesting, but they don't look very anime, so I'm curious if these are just his designs and he's going to hire an animator or something. It's not extremely clear to me.
Yeah, I don't know.
So it's a gamble. And I found Amplitude. I don't think we discussed this last week.
It doesn't sound familiar.
Okay. Harmonix Music Systems. You remember Harmonix is the guys that make Rock Band?
Okay.
They have their own Kickstarter. They're trying to remake a rhythm action music game for the PS4 and PS3 based on Amplitude, which was made in 2003 by Harmonix.
I heard about this from one of my gaming channels on YouTube.
Yeah. I found the Kickstarter by accident as I was tooling around. They have 12 days to go. This one ends on May 23rd. They have 5,655 backers. The goal to get this started is $775,000. But they currently have $201,867.
Wow. Damn.
Yeah. So evidently name recognition is not quite enough. Because they can still do this, but somebody's got to do something fast. You know, I mean, if you pledge $10, you get a hearty thank you and your name in the credits. But if you pledge $15 on the early bird special, is that limit? Yep. That was limited to 1,000, which are all gone. You get a download copy of the game.
Wow.
For $40 or more, you get a full download code for the game 2 weeks before the launch. $70 or more, you get the Amplitude print with a digital version of the soundtrack, digital art book, digital download code for the game 2 weeks before the launch, and your name in the credits. The pledges can go all the way up to $10,000, which includes a jam session with Harmonix, a Boston helicopter tour, a vote on the final soundtrack, original Amplitude compositions on vinyl, rad T-shirt, all new PlayStation 2 style game box, digital version of the soundtrack, backer only track, backer blaster, custom ship for $100 or more backers, exclusive Amplitude print, download code. You know, basically, if you pay $10,000, they hire you.
Well, they turn you into a MVP playtester anyway.
Yeah, really. I found something else new. It's called Zero Complex. Unfortunately, I got involved in this one late. The description in the Kickstarter by Paul DeNigris of Phoenix, Arizona. That's a funny name for a white guy. He called it Kick-Ass Meets Community. Cosplaying college students become would-be crime fighters and hijinks ensue.
Okay.
This sounds like a nightmare. It has 14 hours to go. It ends later today. Has 187 backers. The goal is $22,000. Currently sits at $12,830.
Yeah.
That is kind of a hard sell.
It's a lot of money.
Well, $22,000 for Kickstarters is not that bad, especially for a video project. But it's a matter of, did you hire the right actors? You know, you've kind of hit on a dangerous niche because you have to try and make a superhero movie out of cosplayers. Your costumes would have to be detailed but believable. And the character designs he has are interesting, but I have trouble believing that these would not be anything less than top-tier cosplayers, if that makes any sense. I'm seeing a lot of rubber suits and leather and corsets. You know, these would be the guys who don't do much beyond cosplay. So it's kind of a trade-off. You know, this could be real interesting, but he might have gone a little too far into the unbelievable in his presentation.
Or it could just be lack of interest. I don't know.
That's true. There's another cosplay project I found called A Night in New Orleans, presented by Cost Culture. It's being done by Gillian O'Daniel and Christy Turner of Mobile, Alabama. They want to set up a cosplay shoot with 14 notable cosplayers and 3 photographers in September in New Orleans, French Quarter.
Is this a redo of the one they tried to do overseas? Or is this a different set of people?
I think this is a different group of people. That overseas project was being done by a Londonian.
Okay.
This one's being done by people from Mobile, Alabama. They do have some fairly notable cosplayers, and a few I've seen at conventions, including Monster Mash as Wolverine, Belcher as Rogue, Anamia as Emma Frost, KO Cosplay as the Scarlet Witch. You know, I went through the entire list of cosplayers to see who they'd be playing, and they're all either Avengers or X-Men.
Okay.
So it's a very themed group. The way they've tried to market this to people is that you would get there's a chance for you in the donation to get a coffee book or coffee table style book, and the donations are not very high. Most of them are $40, but most of those rewards are to get an 11 by 17 photo of a particular cosplayer you want to back, you know, signed, I believe, and your name in the back of the book. It doesn't really get more expanded than that until you start doing $100, which is a digital bundle of 20 shots and a poster-sized group shot. $250, a copy of the tabletop book, a digital bundle of 20 shots. That must be an expensive book for $100 additional. Yeah, at $250 is the first time you actually get the book. $400 is lunch with a cast and crew, but you have to make your own way to New Orleans, and all other rewards. $1,000 is a full backstage pass for one person, which means you get to watch them as they shoot the book. Lunch with a cast and crew in New Orleans, you got to make your own way there again, and a cameo shoot with the cast. I like photo shoots. I just worry that they've structured this in such a way that unless you are truly interested and able to fly yourself out to New Orleans, you may not have given them much to go at.
Yeah. How much money do they want again?
25,000.
Well, actually, I don't think I ever said. They have 26 days to go. This one ends on June 7th. They have 12 backers. The goal is $25,000. They currently have 640.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, the Kickstarter did just start, and they have to start advertising. Like I said, you know, when you have goals, you got to be able to give something reasonable for a low amount of money to get a lot of people involved. You'll always find a few money-backed individuals who will pay unbelievable amounts of cash for specific projects, but you got to get average people involved, and a lot of them are not going to pay $250 for their first shot at the book. You know, you got to give them like a $50 tier so they can get just the book and walk away. I mean, that's going to be of some of their interest.
Being that they want $25,000, and the one that obviously the one that they're really hoping takes off is the $250 one, just because, you know, the numbers come out so nice. But yeah, I mean, I might consider backing for $40, but that would be more of
more
of a charity giveaway, because I can't say that I really care. I don't know. I suppose it just depends on your interest in the cosplay community and whether or not you really want to see the thing happen. But for me, yeah.
Well, they have like a dozen of these $40 tiers simply because you get to
pick one
for that $40. Yeah. Right, you're picking specifically which one you want a picture of, and there's a few I would like pictures from, but 40. In my case, what am I getting? For $40, I'm getting the equivalent of an art print and my name in the back of a book I still don't own.
Yeah. Very true.
So for $40, you should get a copy of the book as well, reasonably speaking. I also found out that one of the events at Comic-Con is looking for funding. They have what they call the Zombie Prom.
Oh, okay.
It's a bunch of people dressed up as like prom goers who are zombified, and they do a walk from a park near Comic-Con down to Comic-Con. It's been self-funded the last few years, but I guess this year they're running into a little bit of difficulty. It's on Indiegogo. It ends on May 12th. It ends tomorrow.
Wow.
At midnight. They have a goal of $3,000. They currently have $1,270. They only have 22 funders. Let me see. For $25, you can get a poster of Night on Zombie Island, and I have no idea what that is. For $30, you can get a T-shirt, and it doesn't say anything about the poster. I don't think you get that as well. The highest one is $2,000. Your project or business will be included on printed promotional flyers, regularly mention our press releases, social media campaigns. You'll receive 6 tickets to Night on Zombie Island to be used for yourself, staff, or as giveaways. You'll also receive one of the limited edition posters as a keepsake, 10 standard posters, and an event T-shirt. That's an impressive package. It seems a bit light for $2,000. But actually, you get 6 tickets, so I guess you really shouldn't complain. And a lot of advertising if you're a company. The last one I have is Solar Roadways. This is an Indiegogo that started. It is. Let me see. Who's this by? Sagal. It's coming out of Sagal, Idaho, in the U.S. Who's doing this? Okay, it's not telling me who did this, but the project is to create solar panels that can replace asphalt.
Turn
America's roadways into solar accumulation.
Sounds like a fascinating idea.
Yeah.
Well, part of the presentation on Indiegogo includes a video where they test out the solar panels by running a tractor across it.
Okay. That solves one of my concerns.
Well, I mean, as far as neighborhood roadways, it does solve one concern. It doesn't exactly address freeways, because trucks would be heavier than these tractors.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. I mean, running it across at once is all fine and good, but how often are you going to have to replace these?
That's another question I have. I mean, the presentation says these things can stand 250,000 pounds. I don't know if that means individually or distributed weight loads. But the other concern I had just in staring at that is we have one of the lowest respect for public property in this country, I think.
Yeah.
And I could see people prying these up, trying to get the technology out of them. So I don't know how you secure them. I don't know if you'd have to weld them in place or something bizarre like that.
And then, what's to stop people from getting annoyed and just smashing them or something?
Exactly. So I don't know. I guess if they have able to withstand 250,000 pounds, you got to apply a lot of direct pressure to destroy one of these things.
Well, again, if it's distributed load, or and that doesn't. The impact force compared to just rolling over something is a little bit different too.
But there aren't many people who distribute that much force in one hit.
Well, no, you wouldn't be distributing it. You'd be concentrating all on a point. So if it's 250,000 pounds over a distributed load, what's its point?
They're probably not going to. They're not going to disclose that spec just out of trade secrets.
No, but yeah,
I mean, it sounds like the way to destroy these would be some construction worker on a rampage with a pile driver,
jackhammer.
Yeah, which means we're like 2 steps away from labor frame crimes. We have to call in the special police.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, security is a little bit of a problem too. I mean, just in this area, we're having people running around, breaking open people's cable boxes outside in order to scavenge out the aluminum and shit like that. So, you stick something like that on a roadway where at 2 a.m., who's to say?
Yeah. Well, this project has 21 days to go. They have 1,052 funders. The goal is $1 million. They currently have $51,860. And this is not exactly a fly-by-night. This is one of those things that's been featured in about 20 different online magazines and outlets. You know, I see CNN, Parking Matters, Earth Tech Link, Engadget, Energy Digital, Daily Kos, Gizmag, Energy Matters, Gris, Spiegel Online, Time, Fox News, USA Today, Scientific American, Wall Street Journal, TV Tokyo, PopSci, Wired, Smithsonian, New York Times. And there's probably twice as many outlets as I named that have had this project featured in one way or another. So it's a very interesting idea and one that could really change the way we think of power accumulation, especially if cities start accumulating their own power. I could also see this as getting a heavy pushback because, you know, utility companies would just get pissed.
Yeah, they would, but tough.
Yeah. So we will move on from there, and this is where we usually start talking about video game news. Believe it or not, video game news was extremely light this week. I only have 5 stories in video game news. First off is that Nintendo earnings. I'm not a fan of the Wii, but I don't like to see people lose their jobs, which is that may be a serious threat in Nintendo these days. Nintendo, during the fiscal year of 2014, which ended in March 31st, lost $228 million.
Wow.
Nintendo as a whole lost $228 million. That's a serious problem when you consider 2013 they made a profit of only $71 million a year prior.
Damn.
Yeah. The primary reason for that is hardware sales. The Wii U has sold 2.72 million units last year. Over the existence of the system, which has been, 2.5, 3 years now? They've sold 6.17 million Wii U's.
Wow.
You realize why that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
The PS4 has been in existence since last November. They've already sold over 7 million units.
Maybe Sega made the right choice.
Yeah, I believe the Xbox One sold about, I think it sold about 4 to 5 million. So the Wii U is just, they're in serious danger of being completely irrelevant in this group of systems.
Well, I really think, I mean, the Wii U, from what I can understand, their whole thing is, let's target the casual gamers. But, I mean, there are casual gamers, but you're kind of marginalizing yourself right there.
I mean, the idea of targeting casual gamers worked very well for the Wii, but the Wii was a very innovative product when it came out. And I'm speaking to somebody that never bought one. I didn't have an interest in it, but I understood how the nunchuck controllers, or at the very least the motion sensor, was a very new idea. I mean, hell, Sony copied it. Microsoft came up with their different version of it in the Kinect, but there was nothing quite like that motion sensor that they came out with on the Wii that was so simple and just straight to the point. It needed work. It wasn't a perfect product, but after a couple of add-ons, they figured out how to make it work. The Wii U, they tried the same type of thing, but all they did was give you a Wii that could match the prior generation systems, which at that point were still superior to it, and then they gave you a tablet. That was their version of innovation, is now they gave you this thing that sometimes in games you got to stop down and start poking at it to get extra features to work.
Yeah.
So they kind of shot themselves in the foot by not quite being innovative. A tablet-associated video game is different, but it wasn't anything new. By then, mobile gaming had already evolved to the point where tablets were kind of a regular part of mobile gaming. And tablets had stolen casual video gamers, I think. Because they don't have to buy anything new now. They just have to download $5 worth of software, and then they start playing. It's a hell of a lot cheaper than it was to play video games for them. So I can see why they're gone. Not because I enjoy tablet games. I think they suck. But for people who don't have a heavy interest in video games, it's perfect.
Yep.
Did you guys see this trailer video for a new Xbox One exclusive called Sunset Overdrive?
No.
I heard it talked about, but no, I haven't seen the video.
I'll link you to the story while I'm talking here. Insomniac Insomniac Games, which made Resistance and Ratchet and Clank, have made this shooter called Sunset Overdrive, which they say that all their prior games are what they've been building to for this. It's a bizarre shooter where an energy drink has caused a mutation virus to outbreak, so there's all kinds of funky creatures everywhere. You're one of the few survivors, and gangs of survivors have gotten together, and now they're fighting for territory in addition to trying to fight off mutants. It's one of those games that has bizarre weapons like bowling ball cannons and explosive teddy bears. I checked out the video. It looks like... What's the best way to describe this? It looks like the backgrounds from Jet Set Radio combined with gameplay that's a little bit looser than Titanfall and whimsy, kind of like, I don't know, Kung Fu Chaos, all kind of wrapped together. So you have this bizarre thing that's meant to scare you as much as make you laugh.
Yeah.
It's a groovy idea, and I look forward to seeing the demos, but until it comes out, I'm not going to say much of anything one way or the other on how good this is. It is coming out this fall, though, so it's relatively close.
Well, not too long to wait, then.
No, I'm sure demos will start popping up probably somewhere right after Comic-Con. There was an interesting story that came out of Forbes that said that the Sony's DualShock 4 controller for the PS4, the light bar was always meant for virtual reality. There's this bizarre light bar on PS4 controllers. It's this blue line that a lot of people complain was just draining the battery. But it turns out that light is a tracking light. It's to follow movements of... it's so you can follow movements, similar to the Wii controller, it sounds like, to simulate hand movement in VR games. So supposedly they were planning ahead for the Sony Morpheus project.
Well, intercompany project, yeah, I'll believe that.
Well, it's plausible. We just won't know until the system actually comes out with the Morpheus or whatever they're going to call it afterwards. So, I mean, I'm going to put that... I know that came out on Forbes. I'm going to put that as rumor until I actually see more, because after all, Forbes is not a video game rag. You know, Forbes is a money rag. For all I know, they're just trying to get somebody to invest in something they like. The Oculus Rift CEO, he's gotten kind of loud since Facebook bought up his company, probably because he now has money to properly advertise his product. Here's the thing. He may be setting up Sword Art Online. CEO Brandon Uribe discussed Oculus's own project, which is that they want to put together an MMO, a VR MMO that has over 1 billion users.
Damn, that's ambitious.
Yeah, he gave no further details on the project or if it's even a project. For all we know, this is just conceptual. But he went on to say that his MMO, in addition to breaking records, would probably not be one built purely for gamers. He compared Game Boys to iPhones and Androids, where, quote, handheld gaming devices are largely disputed on the mobile market by the mobile market. For VR, where we want to go, connecting 1 billion people, do you want to be building a platform that has 1 billion users on it, or 10 or 20 or 50 million? Unquote. So what he's trying to say is he is looking for those casual gamers we just talked about. He may have more of a basis to get them simply because the Oculus, if it's the first one out commercially, and I still don't know if it is yet, is it? I know we've seen prototypes, but I don't know if they've commercially.
No, not yet.
Okay. Because if he's the first one out commercially, and he puts together an MMO, he would probably be in a pretty good position to get casual gamers.
Depending on how expensive it is.
Oculus, yeah. Well, I mean, the thing about stuff like this is you have to make it multi-purpose to get casual gamers. And the Oculus, you could technically market as a 3D TV, couldn't you?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
It's just a suggestion. I have no idea for sure. I don't know if you can get the phasing images like you're supposed to out of a 3D image. But I imagine with the acuity of it and the 1080p OLEDs, that should be possible. After all, you do have 2 independent images for the right and left eye. So, but yeah, I'd be interested in a VR MMO for sure. Just please don't ask me to download my brain into it. I'd get paranoid. And the last bit of video game news I have is that there's a flashback console coming for something I never thought I'd see.
I know what this one is.
Yeah, have you guys seen those package bundles where somebody recreated an Atari 2600 and it has like 50 games downloaded into it? Like original Atari games? Okay. They're doing the same thing for the Intellivision.
Wow.
Not only are they recreating the look of the system console, although I think they made it smaller because that thing, if you remember, it was a table. They even have those weird dial-up foam pads. They have 60 pre-programmed games in it, including Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And it has all of the overlays that you put into the dial pads. Remember those plastic sheets that you're supposed to put over the control pad so you know what you're pushing?
Right.
They added those too.
Wow.
It doesn't have a release date, but this is one of those things I saw and it just kind of made me laugh. This was my first video game system.
Yeah, mine was the Atari.
Yeah. Doesn't mean I want to buy it, but there's something about this that just makes me want to buy it and like put it on top of the table. You know, what do you use it for? Toaster.
For memories.
I can almost see my kids. Hey, Dad, what's this? It's a video game system. Where'd you dig it up from? Did you use this when dinosaurs walked around? Well, supposedly, according to Watch Online Movies blog, there's an Incredible Hulk sequel in the works after Avengers 2.
Heard something about that.
Okay.
Well, it's been long rumored ever since the Avengers came out and people started to like the Hulk. There's been 2 prior movies that didn't do great because they were monster movies, not superhero movies, and people don't really understand that the Hulk's not made to save people. The Hulk's made to wreck stuff.
Hulk was a monster.
When Stan Lee originally wrote it way back in the 50s, the Hulk was a character that was... It's kind of like a modern allegory of Jekyll and Hyde.
Yep.
Monster may have been nicer, but he's still a monster. But they're saying that this potential Hulk franchise could go in the Phase 3 set of movies, which would put him next to the Black Panther and Doctor Strange. We've heard... and Ant-Man, too. There's got to be another movie in there, frankly, because Phase 3, those all sound like solid films, but you got a bunch of origin movies, and people are going to be asking about... Well, no, actually, there is another marquee one in there, because Captain America 3 would fall in Phase 3, wouldn't he?
I guess
yeah, he'd be in that 2-year bubble. Yeah. Or just after it. So, yeah, this is plausible. Just whether or not they could do it right. Speaking of the Hulk, they're using motion capture for the Hulk again, for his scenes in the movie, in Age of Ultron. And this time they hired a heavyweight. Andy Serkis is doing the motion capture for the Hulk.
Who?
Andy Serkis. He's the guy that did Caesar in the Planets of the Apes films, and he's also the guy that did Gollum in the Lord of the Rings movies.
Hmm.
Andy Serkis is kind of a new age actor because we've never actually seen his face on screen. He's done motion capture for some of the most iconic characters that have been CG'd recently. He's superbly good with how he emotes in form of motion, and he's actually become something close to a household name in motion capture in movies. Which is really good, because that means that we may see more of Hulk than we've ever seen before in Age of Ultron. And let me see. As far as Days of Future Past goes, the entire clip that was shown at the end of Spider-Man 2 is now online for people to view on YouTube. So, there is no bones about it. That has nothing to do with a crossover. Otherwise, they keep it to something that you have to go see the movie to see. Speaking of which, maybe they don't have to do that simply because Spider-Man 2 seems to have hit a wall.
Really?
It swung right into a wall. The first weekend it made $92 million, which is, it's even the top in the franchise, frankly. I think Spider-Man 1 and 3, which were done by Sam Raimi, both made more. Spider-Man 2 Amazing Spider-Man 2 definitely had a lower take than Captain America on its opening weekend. But the thing is, I saw a recent story that said that Spider-Man 2 is following this weekend. You know, its second weekend. It already dropped to number 2 in the box office.
Losing out to what?
It was
Neighborhood.
Seth Rogen and Zac Efron in The Neighbors.
Oh, God.
It got beat by an R-rated comedy. Apparently, word of mouth on this movie has not been terrific.
Really? I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The reviews were mostly mixed that I came across, and word of mouth is not very strong. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but Spider-Man is all Sony has left from their original Marvel franchises they bought, right?
Pretty sure, yeah.
No, this is not giving me hope. Now, to be fair, I don't know if people had an issue with the movie or if people just didn't see the death of Gwen Stacy coming. Because comic book fans would have seen it coming a mile away. But movie fans don't know dick about that.
For non-comic fans, you had to know something was going to happen with the character.
Not really, because think about what movie fans know.
No,
There's 3 acts in general.
Non-comic book fans. I'm saying for non-comic fans, you know, they had to know something was going to happen with Gwen Stacy.
Non-comic book? Well, if you were watching the movie, yeah, it was pretty telegraphed, but I don't think anybody had mentioned anything beforehand. Non-comic book fans, no, I don't think they really had a clue.
You know, it's just one of those things. Movie fans, they're used to, unless they're going to see a drama, they're used to a happy ending. They don't really have a concept for heroes that lose, which Spider-Man does almost as often as he wins. Almost as often as he wins, because he doesn't lose cities, he doesn't lose fights, he loses people. That's just kind of his reality. He's probably the closest thing we have to a real-life superhero because he can't save everybody. It just doesn't work out that way because his powers are not... They're not healing powers. They're not flight powers. They're not, I can stand 18 bullet shot powers. You know, it's a guy that's somewhat more invulnerable, but he can't move much faster than normal humans, really.
He can.
Yeah, he's got the reaction speed, but actual movement.
Yeah, I'm talking about
actual foot speed. He is faster, but not hugely faster.
But did you guys see all the Easter eggs that were in Spider-Man 2?
There were a lot. I don't know if I saw them all.
Okay, there was a YouTube scientist who educated Peter Parker about magnets. That was the director. I'm sure you guys noticed that the Black Cat was in the movie. You know, they really hammered that name Felicia over and over again in the film as if to say, look, something here. There was a thing I told you about last week where if you Shazam the end sequence in the movie, you got a special trailer that showed, on your phone anyway, special trailer about the Sinister Six and the symbology in it. Do you know that the Venom symbiote was taken out of the movie?
I'm glad.
Yeah.
That scene where the man in the shadow was walking through and you saw the wings and the arms and all that? The box with the arms wasn't originally there. It was a box with a floating blue-black goo in it.
I'm trying to think of what point of the movie you're talking about.
I think it was one of those empty cells we saw that seemed kind of out of place.
The man in the shadows walked by the Vulture's wings, and they're in prototype, and then he walked by Dr. Octopus's arms, which are kind of floating. It wasn't Dr. Octopus's arms. Those were CG'd into that area. Before, it was the Venom symbiote. When somebody's poking around a computer screen, there's obvious callbacks because they call one experiment on that screen OCT-32A, which is the number of appearances that Dr. Octopus has in the Ultimate Comics. Dr. Connor's file, Dr. Morbius file. Really hope he's not in a movie. And I'm sure you guys noticed BJ Novak, who was called Alistair Smythe a few times. Yeah, the Spider Slayer. And let me see. There was an extra scene that was actually cut out of the movie. The final credit scene. Yeah, I mean, you know what it is right now. The final credit scene was, the X-Men advertisement. Before, they actually had their own scene for the end of the movie in that. It was a creepy scene, apparently, where the man in shadows is wandering around a basement underneath the Oscorp building. I guess after the entire events of the movie, and he opens the security door, and behind it is Norman Osborn's head in a jar.
Oh.
And he walks up to it, taps it a couple times, and says, well, old friend, it's time to wake up.
And the eyes open.
It didn't say the eyes open. It just said time to wake up. So they left an open-ended implication.
Wow.
That would have been a pretty good scene to add to the movie.
Yeah,
goddammit.
yeah. Hello, throw it at the end of the movie. Everybody sat there and watched the rest of the credits anyway, going, "Well, they have to have something for Spider-Man in there, right?" That was, nothing did the little, advertisement for another movie.
Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah.
What can you do? They talked. Let me see. Yahoo News Access Hollywood talked to Elizabeth Olsen about playing the Scarlet Witch in Age of Ultron. And it turns out that we're going to see Elizabeth Olsen and Aaron Taylor Johnson share screen time one time before in the new Godzilla movie together. She said, quote, "It felt very right. I've never worked with the same actor twice. I'm really enjoying the familiarity." And then they asked her about jumping into an established star-studded franchise. She said, quote, "It's a bit intimidating because we're still at work at a specific speed and no one is slowing down for Aaron and I to create our characters." Aaron Taylor Johnson had similar words. He said, quote, "I couldn't think of anyone better to be working with again," unquote, when he talked about Elizabeth Olsen. And they asked him, since he'd already filmed scenes with Jeremy Renner and, the allegory for Ultron in the film, they asked him what that was like, and he said, quote, "I've seen artwork and stuff like that, but I can't tell you anything," unquote.
Oh, damn it.
So he's pretty sure there's a sniper watching him. Do you guys know anything about Avengers Station?
Huh?
Avengers Station. Station.
No.
Okay, I would love to know more about this. This is apparently going to be an exhibit that's going to open in New York on May 23rd at Discovery Times Square, which I think is a science museum. They're recreating what is going to be a shield station inside the museum for people to walk through. It includes like one of those fancy ops tables, like you see recreations of Nick Fury's jacket, Thor's armor, one of the Iron Man armors, and several other supposed exhibits and trophies to check out. I don't have any information beyond that, but this sounds like the type of place I enjoy walking around and just being stupid for an afternoon.
It's always fun.
Yeah. Let me see. Oh, there's another interview with Aaron Taylor Johnson that was done by comicbookmovie.com. He actually had a bit more to say about how he got into this project. He said, quote, "Just before I started Godzilla, I met Joss Whedon. He said to me, 'Do you want to be in Avengers 2? There's a superhero I'm thinking of for you.' The thing for me was him. Why add any more superheroes to this thing?" "No," he said, "there are these two characters that I want to bring in to frick with the Avengers and not just be an add-on." He told me a little bit about the writing, and I said the only reason I would want to do it is if it is a character that can still stand out. He said, "You've got 5 of the most awesome superheroes, 10, I suppose. There are about 10 Avengers now. They're all movie stars. You've got such a huge cast. What the hell difference is it going to make if I come on the scene?" So it was the character, and that took about a year of going back and forth about it. It took a while, but I'm super happy to be in that one, unquote.
Once a character that can stand out, I think Quicksilver can stand out.
Yeah.
Really. Then comic book movie caught up with Elizabeth Olsen, and talking about Aaron Taylor Johnson, she said, quote, "We have a much closer connection in Avengers, actually. Because we play this twin brother and sister that never leave each other's side. In Godzilla, the whole point was that we were apart, so it's totally different. But nice to have known him and his family and him as a person as well as an actor before doing that. It was like, let's try and make these characters so different. And it was cool to be playing an Eastern European as well. So we're trying to embrace that," unquote.
I guess I didn't really realize that they were reusing the same characters from Godzilla. That's kind of amusing.
Oh, they're not using it. Well, you mean actors,
not characters, actors.
Okay. How about this? Fox has cast Johnny Storm and Sue Storm's father for their new Fantastic Four film.
Still
Again?
on board? That's still on board?
Oh, that's still forward. Yeah, they've hired Reg E. Cassie to play the elder Dr. Storm. Which goes along with what we know, because Reggie Cathy is kind of a notable black actor. I'm starting to wonder if Johnny and Sue are just brother and sister by marriage than anything else.
That would be awkward.
Because, well, I mean, I'm asking because I've seen Kate Mara. She's a very bright woman and everything, but she is Anglo, and this Johnny Storm and his father, both African actors. So that doesn't even imply mixed blood. That implies a family by marriage, it sounds like. I think you guys will link. See, I can't explain him to you, but I'm sure you've seen his face in several projects. So I guess it tells us a little bit of where the story is headed. And they've released the poster for the season finale of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It doesn't give you hope. It looks like this. And it makes it appear that S.H.I.E.L.D. may not be reformed by the end of the season.
Well, it's following the latest trend that Marvel's been putting out, and it's like everyone's gonna fucking lose.
Well, not lose per se, but I mean, it makes it sound like S.H.I.E.L.D. may not be reconstituted till well into the next group of Marvel movies. Which technically won't happen. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy is up next in August, but I don't know of another Marvel movie until Age of Ultron. You guys?
No, I'm pretty sure that's the next one.
Yeah. So S.H.I.E.L.D. may not even be a thing until Nick Fury and his crew gets to resurface in Age of Ultron. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was, however, renewed for a second season. ABC's picked it up again.
Yep.
So despite everyone saying how much this show sucks and how lukewarm it is, it's still there. Not only that, they ordered a new series.
What?
Agent Carter is getting her own TV series. It's supposed to be her early adventures in the formations of this new spy company coming around in 1946.
Interesting.
So no time travel in this one. There's also news that there was a new clip released for the web of Quicksilver's role in Days of Futures Past, and it actually expanded a bit on how his powers are going to work. He actually, despite people's complaints of his looks, the video involving Quicksilver is actually very entertaining in my opinion. But further than that, they were talking a bit about X-Men Apocalypse, and Bryan Singer, who is I guess it's one of the statements he's allowed to make considering all the trouble he's in lately. He said he might use younger versions of Storm, Cyclops, and Jean Grey in X-Men Apocalypse. The timeline of the movie, minus any time travel, is supposed to be set in the 80s. So that would be about the time these characters could appear. Now, whether or not they're going to screw Cyclops over for a fourth time, I don't know. Be nice to actually see that character cut loose for frickin' once. There have been some clips released for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. already, including the first 3 minutes of the next episode and another some kind of mid-scene item. It's kind of hard to describe. It was also very interesting, though, to find out that John Goodman has been cast as Hound in the new Transformers Age of Extinction. Hound in this movie looks an awful lot like Bulkhead for some reason. But that's going to be John Goodman. Not only that, Ken Watanabe from The Last Samurai and a few other movies, he's being cast as Drift.
Interesting.
Have you guys seen Inception?
Nope.
Wow. Guys, I've seen 30 movies except for a few that a lot of people have seen.
Just had no interest in Inception, to be honest.
Did I? But I'll still watch it and give it a shot. Rather interesting. It's just a little long-winded. But I even saw a scene from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season finale that shows Cybertech as a company getting ready to try and kill Coulson and his team. So the corporation that created Deathlock is actually involved in all this. Let's see. New poster for the Agent Carter TV series. That's visual. Mark Ruffalo tweeted a very disturbing picture from the set of Age of Ultron. You know how they motion captured his facial expressions for the movie? The Hulk actually kind of liked him. I think he's tweeting a piece of that process, but I'm not 100% sure. It looks like the cover poster to a horror film. He's got this bizarre plastic mask with all these holes cut out of it in different colored dots. It looks like he's getting ready to kill you. What do you think?
Hold on, still loading.
Really?
No script, had to work.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's obviously,
It's an interesting picture.
the capture.
That facial expression behind it, though. It's a little bizarre.
I don't know. It looks like he's keeping his eyes open and the rest of his face still.
I
The
might have
crazy
to
hair
unfollow
kind
his
of
Twitter.
helps.
Yeah. Well, there are some early screenings that have been done on Days of Futures Past, and people have been tweeting their responses. It's a bunch of responses I honestly didn't expect because I was getting worried about the movie. The size of the cast, the story, people complaining all the time about why Quicksilver looks like he's emo, stuff like that. Here are some of the early tweets. Humberto Gonzalez says, they should call X-Men Days of Futures Past Days of Future Hotness. Take it from your fanboy nation, the movie's absolute fire. Is it as good as The Winter Soldier, y'all ask? Well, mutants ain't my thing, and I'm a tad biased towards Cap, but yes, it's just as good. Surprisingly, Quicksilver wasn't corny. Stephen Weintraub says, X-Men Days of Futures Past is great. Film finds ways to make both casts work, and Quicksilver, wow, his main scene is the highlight of the film. And like all Marvel movies, make sure you stay till the end of the X-Men Days of Futures Past credits. It's definitely worth it. Have to say, it was fucking awesome seeing the old and new X-Men cast in the same movie. Movie is 2 hours, 10 minutes. Wish it was longer. Latino Review is kind of a big name in movies, at least online movie reviews. It says, saw X-Men Days of Futures Past, and it was really good. In opinion, it's the best X-Men movie so far, but that's just me. It was like Avengers, but with mutants. One last thing about X-Men Days of Futures Past. Laugh all you want about but the Quicksilver scene was pretty awesome. That is all. There's several other tweets that all say the same thing, that the movie is pretty good, and Quicksilver is like a revelation in the film. So, you know that all those people that came up just saying, this movie looks stupid, Quicksilver looks stupid, they're not going to apologize. They're just going to fucking vanish.
Yeah.
But Marvel had a shareholders conference call on the 6th of this month, and Disney Chairman and CEO Robert Iger discussed the upcoming projects, and one of them happened to be Guardians of the Galaxy. He gave it an unusual endorsement. During the call, he said, quote, Captain America the Winter Soldier has far surpassed the first Captain America in total global box office, which obviously bodes well for our Avengers franchise. We had enormous success releasing Marvel movies on the first weekend of May, including the 2 biggest domestic openings of all time. And we'll continue this tradition with Avengers Age of Ultron next year and Captain America 3 in 2016. Avengers Age of Ultron is currently shooting an early footage and looks great. They're already shooting Age of Ultron, that's right. This August 1st, we're looking forward to introducing the world to a more fantastic Marvel storytelling with a great cast of new characters in Guardians of the Galaxy, which we screened last week and believe has strong franchise potential.
So that's...
They think they can make another string of movies of the cosmic nature of Marvel, and Guardians of the Galaxy may be the first shot. So I'm not saying we're looking necessarily at Guardians 2 or 3,
Right.
but we may be looking at additional movies, say, Nova and the Annihilators and frickin' Silver Surfer and things like that. Well, no, Silver Surfer's tied up with Fox. But there's a host of Marvel cosmic heroes. Quasar? So we could be looking at a whole new branch of the Marvel Universe opening up based on this film. They're not very well-known Marvel heroes, but if given the right light, they're very entertaining ones. Really like to see Richard Rider, though. Hugh Jackman says they already have a story for the Wolverine 2. They already have the story, and there's word that he's going to be filming Age of Apocalypse and Wolverine 3 back-to-back.
Wow.
I mean, to me, it's Wolverine 3 with that stupid X-Men Origins thing, just keeping the whole thing together. If I had my choice, it'd be the Wolverine 2. I'd like to wipe that first movie completely out of continuity and out of my mind.
Yeah.
But he and the director James Mangold, the guy who directed the original Wolverine film, they apparently already have a story. They have a story they have been working on for a while, and it's in production.
Okay.
Writer-producer Simon Kinberg, working on the X-Men franchise for Fox, has said that the Apocalypse movie is going to be the biggest one yet. Quote, "We want to tell the Apocalypse story, and there's massive scale and scope to telling that story. There's going to be set pieces that I suspect are going to be bigger than anything we've ever done in an X-Men movie before, and he's a great character. The biggest and funnest challenge of the Apocalypse movie, to me, is his character. How do you create a new villain for the X-Men world that's just as good as any villain that's come before? Is compelling philosophically as Magneto, not just in his physical powers, but in his philosophical depth. Apocalypse is going to be a fun movie to write and make," unquote. I like most of that quote up until he said this is going to be a fun movie to write. It's like, he's not supposed to be fun. Apocalypse is one of those villains that's wiped the boards. He's gonna F up heroes and villains alike.
I don't think he meant the movie's gonna be fun. He's gonna be fun in the writing process.
I just hope not. That sometimes when these things have minor shifts in cast, all of a sudden everything gets really broken. Don't believe me? Look what happens when they change directors between 2 and 3 for the X-Men franchise. That was just a director. Speaking of director changes, the writer for the Fantastic Four reboot gave up a quote regarding the movies that came prior. So, quote, "The energy on set is great. Josh Trank is fantastic on set, really in command, really clear, and the thing that's most unique or defining about the new Fantastic Four is the tone. We're approaching it from a much more realistic, grounded science rather than science fiction way. The playfulness or goofiness of those other movies is very, very different from what we're trying to do. Just seeing those actors and seeing Josh, the way he's articulating the tone and the way the actors are executing, it gives me a lot of confidence that we'll actually be able to make a cool Fantastic Four movie," unquote.
Scientific as opposed to science fiction. We're talking about the Fantastic Four, right?
So more specifically, if you're talking about Reed Richards, I don't think you can talk anything superbly scientific with that man. I mean, if you're talking about the character, I think talking pure science instead of science fiction, you might bore him a bit. So I like the concept of where they're headed. As far as the actuality, I don't know.
No.
I mean, if that's the case, why not just replace Mr. Fantastic with Neil deGrasse Tyson? He can make science sound interesting.
But it's Reed Richards. He's always been boring. He's had everyone else to kind of rein him in.
Yeah, really. Did we talk about the Assault on Arkham trailer last week?
I believe we did.
I don't think so.
I think we did. Yeah, we did. Okay. Let's see. From there, we'll move into DC media news, and one of the biggest items that came out all week is that the trailer for the new Gotham TV series was released by Fox.
I am not impressed.
I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. What occurred?
Oh, it's kind of did like a I can't describe it. My vocabulary sucks. They're saying basically they're showing us like this is what Gotham was like before Batman came around, and they're showcasing all the different actors by name and show.
See, that's the thing I've been worried about since they announced this series. Forget the fact that I haven't been a Batman fan for about 12 years now. Let's just throw that out the window. What I'm worried about is that the Batman series is kind of defined not just by the pathos and the pain and suffering of its original or of its title character. It's also defined by some of the most colorful villains that have ever been created in comics. And this series takes all that color away. Yeah,
my impression of it, aside from the noble fictional characters from the Batman Rogues Gallery, it just feels like a normal cop drama in a dreary city.
And that concerns me because I never got into Smallville, not because of my Superman dislike, but it's kind of hard for me to buy a Superman series that doesn't have Superman in it. The whole no tights, no flights rule may have worked well to keep it from looking too weird, but at the same time, that kind of takes the heart and soul out of the character. And this is kind of the same thing.
I kind of stay away from Smallville because I'm not into teen dramas.
Is that where this is headed? Because I thought it was going to be
about
adults in this film.
I was talking about Smallville for Gotham. It feels like it feels like a generic cop drama.
I'll have to watch that after the show and see what I think. But I haven't had great confidence in it so far. But the series has gotten a full series order at Fox, so we're going to get at least a full season of this unless it really blows. I'm still disappointed, though, that they haven't created a cohesive universe for the DC properties yet. It'd probably make it easier for me to get into this if I thought that this story may affect something else I'm going to see down the road. And let me see, The Flash, iZombie, and Constantine have all gotten full series orders as well.
What the hell is iZombie?
iZombie is an original story. It's almost like it's a comic book that DC's running right now, but it is also like a teen drama book. It's a story of a young lady who is a zombie who's trying to suppress her instincts to eat brains and just kind of coexist in the regular world. It's not a superhero book at all.
This.
It's not regular DC canon either. It's a Vertigo imprint, which means it's one of those Elseworld type deals.
From the premises you just gave me, it doesn't sound very original. It sounds like I've heard this concept plenty of times everywhere else.
You mean like Morbius, the living vampire? Or First Night? Or Beauty and the Beast? Okay, I'll stop. It is what it is. You know, unfortunately, the fact that half of these series have gone to networks doesn't really surprise me, because even if other networks don't order it, like NBC got Constantine, iZombie could go straight to the CW networks, which is just Warner-owned networks. They're selling the show to themselves. Oh, here we go. They actually released a synopsis for this in the story. iZombie. A med student turned zombie takes a job in the coroner's office. To gain access to the brain she must reluctantly eat to maintain her humanity. But with each brain she consumes, she inherits the corpse's memories. With the help of her medical examiner boss and a police detective, she solves homicide cases in order to quiet the disturbing voices in her head. There you go.
Okay, it's a medical / mystery drama? I don't know.
It kind of sounds like a less friendly version of Pushing Daisies, which only lasted a season on ABC. I'm sorry, I started comparing again. Never mind. The last bit of DC media news I have is that the showrunner for the Gotham TV series, Bruno Heller, he says that he intends to feature a slew of Batman villains in the TV show, including the Joker. And he believes his show is going to, quote, surpass the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, unquote.
I'm not holding my breath.
Says in terms of what director and executive producer Danny Cannon and director of photography David Stockton are doing, visually, Gotham will surpass the Batman movies. The movies are a very rigorous kind of dramatic take on that world. They're visually stunning, but not particularly visually pleasurable. I would say this is much more on the street level of Gotham. There's more people. It's a more colorful place. It's a more vivid, more crowded. The inspiration for me and Danny was New York in the 70s, because we both remember that as a seminal moment, coming to the city for the first time. This is very much that kind of Gotham. Intensely visual and three-dimensional and layered and gritty and dirty and sexy and dangerous, unquote. So is this the era of New York where they had hookers in Times Square?
I don't know. His description of it seems to contradict itself, because he's saying colorful and yet dreary. It's like, huh?
Well, maybe colorful and dreary. That was the Tim Burton version of Gotham, in my opinion.
Oh, God.
You know, prior to when Schumacher started putting those bizarre statues everywhere. You know, this is the version of Gotham that every night seemed to be, if you remember, red. You recall that? For no reason, everything seemed to be red.
If his color is represented by neon lights, I'm done.
Well, that was the Schumacher version. He didn't mention that, man. I think there's still orders for death out for him. Okay, in general media news, there's a deal between Microsoft and Showtime that may take the Halo series they were making for Xbox Live and put it on cable TV. Okay. Xbox Entertainment Studios has been working for a while on a live-action Halo series. You know, Steven Spielberg's been the EP on it. And they've been working for more than a year. But Showtime and Xbox recently signed a deal to finish the series and put it on Showtime. That's an interesting statement of confidence when you're moving a net series to TV. But then again, I've seen Forward Unto Dawn, and I'm now convinced that Halo could actually work as a visual franchise.
Yeah.
IO9, I may start calling them the best there is at spoilers. They released 5 new clips of Godzilla that opens up in a couple weeks. And there are 5 independent clips that are obviously from different parts of the movies. And in one of them, we even get the name of the mystery monster that Godzilla's going to be fighting.
Mothra?
No, it's a new creation called Motu. It's an acronym for something, but it's basically the fact that this flying beast is a walking EM generator, or flying one, I should say. So there's all kinds of interesting little things to pull out of it. It's a good group of clips. Also in general media news, there was an actual duet that was taken out of Frozen.
Huh.
The Disney movie that's turned into such a pop culture sensation. They actually had one duet between the title characters of Anna and Elsa that they thought kind of took away from the current tone of the film, and I listened to it. Fortunately, they had animatic storyboards attached to it, so you got an idea of what motions they were supposed to do during this duet. And I could see this song of Life's Too Short, how it really interrupts the tone that they built throughout the movie. It is kind of this odd happy-go-lucky song where it seems like they're about to reconcile, and then halfway through they start bitching like sisters do at each other. Nah, it didn't help. Oh, remember this bit of news? That Preacher is coming to AMC as a TV show? Well, Seth Rogen is working on it.
Really?
Well, he's adapted comic books for movies before. He's also written. He's the guy who wrote...
Green Hornet?
The Green Hornet, it wasn't his biggest success, but he's also the guy that did This Is the End, which was a pretty good success. He also helped write Neighbors, which is now beating the shit out of Spider-Man. So, say what you will, right? Well, he's working on the Preacher TV series, and he says, quote, "Me and Evan are writing it right now with the help of Sam Caitlin, and we've come up with a lot of incredibly crazy ideas. It's a fun thing to riff on and talk about. We're definitely trying to expand on some of the ideas in the comic and make it that. We love most of the main cornerstones of the comic book, but we're trying to make it that even if you've read the comic, you should not know exactly what to expect from the TV show," unquote.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Well, arguably, that's the same thing that AMC's done with The Walking Dead. They've created a show that's very close to the comics, but takes some serious turns off so it surprises everybody. And I would think that's what you want from an adaptation. You don't want to know exactly where everything's going to go. That's boring. It's like when animes and mangas are released on the same subject. I don't want to watch in an anime what I just read in the manga. I want you to give me a new story. That's why I get pissed when people refer to certain episodes of Naruto as filler. It's not filler. It's a story I haven't seen yet.
It's filler.
It is not. It's a new story.
Perspective.
Yeah. Especially when... The frustrating thing is, it's really filler simply because they're basically making it so that they don't catch up with, or, to wait for the manga to get ahead of it again. If it was just going to be a complete new story, then make a complete new story and don't worry about the manga anymore. But they aren't doing that,
but
so therefore it is filler.
The other side of that bitch, though, is if they didn't release any new stories or any new episodes and actually waited for it, then the complaint would be, well, when are you guys going to do anything?
Right. No, I have no problem with that. I'm just saying it is filler.
Yeah, no.
To be honest, though, I'd rather watch
there
One
were
Piece
some
filler as
episodes
opposed to
that I enjoyed.
Naruto.
Complain.
Bitch him on. Let's go.
The CEO of Disney says there's at least 3 Star Wars spin-offs in development. He said that in a quote. They're working on 3 Star Wars spin-offs that don't include the main trilogy they're working on.
Okay.
There's rumors that 2 of those movies are going to be about Han Solo and Boba Fett. I don't want a Han Solo movie. There are some things I just don't need exposition on, and I think Han Solo's character begins pretty well as it begins in the movies as it exists. I don't need to know that backstory. Boba Fett, I think, is a story that could be told. Yeah. Let's just hope that part of the spin-off strategy isn't a Jar Jar Binks film. Might kill myself. This is in the category of movies I never expected to see, and why would I see it? The Power Rangers are coming back to the big
I
screen.
heard about that one.
The Power Rangers in the U.S. are now 21 years old, which means I am fucking ancient. But they say that this one, they don't want to do the same kind of thing Haim Saban did on TV way back in the day. They want to release a serious, more gritty, live-action, feature-length film. I could see that, but if you're going to release a grittier, darker version, I think you have to change these uniforms all around. Let alone, I don't think you can call them the Power Rangers. That sounds happy in and of itself. You got to find a different name for this. Like Color Knights or something. I don't fucking know, but you can't call them the Power Rangers.
You have to call it the Power Rangers, or it's not going to be the Power Rangers. I don't care if they're going to make it grittier, but...
It's not what they're called in another country. I can exist with another name.
Yeah, but there's going to be an American take on that idea.
Yeah, which means it'll be stuff with energy drinks and cross-promotion.
More than likely.
Mel Brooks was interviewed recently because Blazing Saddles hit its 40th anniversary this year. It's been 40 movies since that, or 40 years since that movie existed. And he said, quote, "It's the funniest movie, I think, by far, no matter what the AFI list says. 5 should be the next number. 1 to 4 should be Blazing Saddles." I saw the AFI list. Blazing Saddles comes in 6th in its list of funniest movies of all time. But he went on to say, quote, "They can't make that movie today because everybody's so politically correct."
Very true.
You know, the NAACP would stop a great movie that would do such a great service to black people because of the N-word. You've got to really examine these things and see what's right and what's wrong. Politically correct is absolutely wrong because it inhibits the freedom of thought. I'm so lucky that they weren't so strong then and that people let things happen on the screen weren't so powerful then. I was very lucky, unquote. I think that's absolutely true. I think PC ruins us because we can't express ideas fully, and let alone we take everything so goddamn seriously. You know, there's sometimes where you just gotta laugh a bit. And I don't mean laugh at a comedy movie. I mean laugh because people's ignorance, you know, they'll let it show in their words, and just because they're ignorant doesn't mean they're going to do anything about it, so give it a giggle. It's also funny that Richard Pryor was originally cast to be Sheriff Bart in the movie, but he couldn't do it because at the time, he wasn't really famous as he became before he died. He was just kind of this drugged-out comedian, and the people funding the movie wouldn't insure him. And it was Pryor who actually... Brooks started fighting for Pryor to be in the movie, and Pryor was the one who actually said, "No, it's okay. There's this other guy that I think can play the part. I'll just write." And Richard Pryor went on to co-write this movie. Pryor is actually the one that wrote just about every one of Mongo's scenes throughout the film. You believe that? That and Brooks always had an idea for the big chili bean scene. That had been knocking around in his head for quite a while.
Wow.
Another movie that makes me feel kind of old. Have you guys ever watched SLC Punk?
No.
No.
It's a pretty good independent movie that starred Matthew Lillard back in 1998. That was a pretty stark view of the punk scene, you know, the underground music scene in Salt Lake City, Utah. You know, Mormon Central. Well, there's a sequel coming. And the odd part is Lillard actually isn't attached to the film. I guess he's not going to be in it. You know, it's a nice coming-of-age film, and a sequel would be pretty good, even if... it's one of those movies that I would say it's great. I'd watch it once, but I don't need to revisit it, you know? One of those things that just makes you think. And oddly enough, one of the movies that made Lillard was this film, and he's not going to be in the sequel. And Michael Fassbender, though, is headed for his own sequel. He's going to be in the Prometheus sequel. He's going to reprise his role as the android in the film, Daniel. Or, no, not Daniel, David, sorry. I don't have much else to say beyond that because I haven't seen Prometheus. I'm not much into the Aliens group of films.
Yeah, I didn't bother with Prometheus either.
Oh, how about this? You guys remember a British superhero called Banana Man?
No.
He had a bunch of mini cartoons back in the day. There was this... okay, the kid's name is as stereotypical as it gets. He's Eric Wimp, W-I-M-P. An ordinary schoolboy who eats a banana to transform into Banana Man, an adult superhero sporting a distinctive blue and yellow outfit complete with a yellow two-tailed cape resembling a banana skin, with the powers of flight, superhuman strength, and seeming invulnerability. So he's Superman, but kind of cheesy. Well, this character's getting a movie. L3 Studio Productions is funding a release of a film set for 2015. They actually already have a small teaser trailer out. Not teaser trailer, a small marketing campaign. And the hashtag is Peel the Power.
God.
No. No.
I don't know. Couldn't be any worse than X-Men Origins. Really couldn't. But there's a new trailer that's been released for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Ugh. There's a new full trailer that's been released for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. It's not a teaser anymore. It actually has some story. And this makes you want to see this movie more than frickin' ever. You guys want to peek?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
I think it's a good trailer. You know, the music gets a little heavy. Got like that deep piano tune.
Piano's always good for conveying emotion.
Yeah. Looks like a nice continuation of story, too. It shows how the humans and the apes have both progressed as independent tribes. And of course, everything with the chimpanzee and the lead, Caesar, is Andy Serkis, who we talked about before.
We don't mean any harm.
I like how it starts. One asshole's walking through the forest, meets two apes, and pulls a gun.
I know why you're scared.
You kind of see how this is going to develop, right?
Years fighting that virus, but we are survivors.
It was a virus created by scientists in a lab. You can't blame the apes.
Who the hell?
Holy crap, Gary Oldman.
Yeah?
We need to give him a chance. Look, they're animals.
Oldman looks like he's going to be a serious force in this movie.
Please. I've seen things. I've seen the way they are. They want what we want to survive.
Caesar, home. This is your home. Your home.
Are you aware they are going to turn on you?
They don't want a war. No, don't shoot!
This looks like it's going to make you ask some serious questions about what it means to be a person.
Caesar, you have to go. Go. Where? Apes!
It's never good when apes have war paint, is it?
Nope.
War, it's not what you want. There must be another way.
Did they have that one guy from Zombieland in there? No.
I don't think so.
You all know what we're up against.
Yeah, I'm in on this. I like where this is
I'm
headed.
not a huge fan of the Planet of the Apes series, but I would watch this.
The first movie was actually much better than I thought it would be.
Maybe we should watch it then.
I watched it when it came to TV. I was expecting something kind of cheesy and tropish, but no, it was a very good, thoughtful movie about our role in the world and how much we may mean well, but we tend to F things up. And this new movie doesn't look like an expansion on it. It just looks like another step in a story. Well, we said last week that Roberto Orci was thinking about trying to direct Star Trek 3 since J.J. Abrams is so busy trying to recreate Star Wars. Well, he's now officially lobbying to be the director. He's not hinting anymore. He wants to do it. It's, I hope he can do it for the sake of continuity, but there's also that part of me that says, you weren't the prior director. I don't know what you're going to do to this. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I don't know. Just have to see how it goes, I suppose.
I just hope they don't go with the Genesis project.
Oh, they killed Khan already. Well, no, they didn't kill Khan. They boxed Khan already, so I don't know.
I don't think... I mean, honestly, the Genesis movie was kind of... how to bring Spock back and all of that. Isn't really necessary.
I don't really care about the Genesis project being portrayed in the new films. I just hope they don't fight God again.
Oh, God.
How about this, though, for unlikely? Remember how James Cameron already announced he's working on the scripts for Avatar 2, 3, and 4?
Jeez, really?
We've already had... Yeah, we talked about that because they're resurrecting Colonel Quatrich for the films, played by Stephen Lang.
Yeah, it's going to be a prequel, I guess.
Yeah, it turns out he's not the only unlikely resurrection because there's parts for Sigourney Weaver in Avatars 2, 3, and 4.
Well, it's a prequel. It would kind of make sense then.
No, they're the sequels.
They are sequels? I heard at least the second one was going to be a prequel.
No, they're all the progression of this story.
Huh. Okay.
So, I mean, we knew that Sam Worthington and Zoe Saldana had jobs. The fact that Colonel Quatchwitch was returning, and they said in interviews that they're bringing him back to life. It's science fiction. Why are you asking these kinds of questions? Which is a fair answer.
Yeah, fair answer. But still, it's like you gotta make me believe it's possible within that world.
I don't know anything about Pandora as a planet and how their shit works. I also know it's also a sci-fi movie that takes place on another world, so you're already beyond the realm of believability. I'll give you a lot of leeway on these things. We're also talking about Sigourney Weaver's character, who's likely to be resurrected from a gigantic tree. So I think there's room for several unbelievable things to happen in there. But they're also filming all 3 movies at once.
That's
okay.
Interesting.
But Peter Jackson did it.
I was going to say, it's not like it hasn't been done before.
Yeah, and I would argue that James Cameron is a better director than Peter Jackson.
I would agree with you. But there might be a little bit of bias in there.
Well, I know there's bias in my case. I don't like Peter Jackson as director. I don't think he's that well polished, but a lot of people get mad at me when I start discussing that subject.
Well, you're entitled to your own opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll move on to Marvel comic news, and it's kind of short. There's only 3 stories. Marvel is asking you for help. They want you to vote on what are the best Marvel stories of all times because they're putting together a 1,200-page 75th anniversary omnibus of Marvel stories. They want people to vote. They want to know what you think are the best stories Marvel's ever put out. So, in response to that, Newsarama had a vote amongst its readers as to the 10 best Marvel stories. I kind of say yes and no to these. In the number 10 position, they have the Days of Futures Past story, the original comic story from 1981, where you got a peek into the X-Men's future and everybody died, literally. Number 9 was the Annihilations miniseries. The story that kind of rebirthed the cosmic leg of Marvel's universe and has actually made it sustain to the point where we have regular series of Nova and Guardians of the Galaxy. Number 8 was a very old story that I have not personally read from the Fantastic Four, The Coming of Galactus. The first time Galactus appeared in Marvel Comics ever. Number 7 was Daredevil Born Again. It's not a story I'm familiar with, but it's a story where Daredevil's trying to save his lady love from the machinations of the Kingpin, Ben Urich, and Nuke. Captain America had a supporting role in the story. Number 6 is one I'm not terribly fond of, and that's the Secret Wars. That's the one where Cosmic Being took Marvel's heroes and villains, like all of them, and put them on a world he created just to fight and see which is stronger, good or evil. In its day, I think it was a fantastic idea. In modern terms, a little trite for me. Number 5, according to Newsarama's readers, was a surprise to me. It's a decent story, but I wouldn't put this in an omnibus of the best. The Age of Apocalypse.
I was wondering if that was going to make it.
Yeah, the one where they've thrown into an alternative world where humans are the minority, mutants are in the majority, and basically killing themselves. 4 was a good one to me, the Civil War.
I feel it.
Marvel heroes picking a side as to whether they should or should not be registered by the government. I think that's an important geopolitical story, at least. Also, it talks a lot about the nature of being a superhero. Number 3 is an interesting choice and not one I've read personally. Amazing Spider-Man, The Turning Point. The Turning Point is the night Gwen Stacy died. It's the issue where the Green Goblin threw off the George Washington Bridge. Number 2 is an obvious choice because I think we've all read this at one point or another. Uncanny X-Men, The Dark Phoenix Saga.
Yes.
I've not read it myself, but
I've got the book in my room.
I know you do.
It's a fantastic story. I think it holds up. Especially since it's one of those events that really kind of defined every character in it all the way down to modern times.
They've been living with the repercussions of the Phoenix for a long time.
When I talk about repercussions, the repercussions of the #1 story, the top story according to Newsarama readers, is still going on. 1991, the limited series written by Jim Starlin, The Infinity Gauntlet. That's the top 10 Marvel stories according to Newsarama.
Well, the thing I think is kind of interesting is that #1 is the Infinity Gauntlet, and what are they gearing up to do as far as, Marvel movies and so forth?
There's no question. Yeah, there's no question where the Avengers are headed in their stories.
So,
the only thing is it's just still disappointing that they don't have the X-Men to play with in this universe. Because, in some of these adventures, if they were all available, they would have slammed headfirst into at least a few X-Men in their New York adventures.
Or come
Sorry?
come across Spider-Man, but
yeah. Actually, that kind of reminded me of another discussion, was that somebody was disappointed in an online forum that the X-Men couldn't be used in the Avengers films, but it occurs to me that several X-Men have been Avengers, technically.
Yeah, Wolverine, Beast.
If you use the same rules you use on the Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, you can use a Wolverine, Beast, Storm, X-23, Sunfire, Firestar.
Cannonball?
Firestar's been an Avenger. Cannonball and Sunspot, yeah. There's a whole host of X-Men that Marvel technically could use right away. I guess they just don't. I guess they just don't want to open up the can of worms to the legal fight that they would probably stalemate on. I just don't think they think it'd be worth the money.
Well, my question is, I know that Marvel Fox has the rights to the X-Men. I don't remember if it's also boils down to mutants or not.
That's the thing, is that they can't use the word mutants in their movies.
That's what I thought. And to me, that... I don't know. They aren't the X-Men if they aren't mutants.
Yeah, it's central to the X-Men pathos as part of the discrimination simply because of their genetic heritage. The last bit of Marvel comic news I have is that one of the producers of the Arrow TV series, Mark Guggenheim, he's taking over the writing duties on the adjectiveless X-Men series. As of issue number 18 in August, Mark Guggenheim is writing the series that involves Rachel Gray, M, Storm, Psylocke, and Jubilee. Not only that, his first story is that the X-Men have been called into space to the Sword Station, the branch of the government that deals with alien threats. The problem is that someone's shown up on their doorstep and they want the X-Men's help to deal with it. Because somebody has beaten the shit out of Deathbird.
Ooh.
I know a lot of people are saying, so what the fuck is that? Deathbird is from
Shi'ar Empire.
a Galactic Empire Marvel universe. Yeah, the Shi'ar, the ones that were trying to kill the Dark Phoenix. And Deathbird has been a regular thorn in their side. She's been the queen for a little while of that empire. She's constantly tried to kill her sister to get the throne. She's tough, she's enduring, she heals fast. Something beat the shit out of her, which usually means it's coming for everybody else. So that's probably going to be something to look out for in a few months. Believe it or not, I have no DC comic news whatsoever. I can't find anything new that they've put out. Most of the news in the last week has really been about the Marvel properties coming through. As far as general comic news, there's a new series called Cowl coming.
What?
Excuse me. There's a new series coming called Cowl. COWL.
Okay.
It's an acronym for the Chicago Organized Workers League. It's a 1962 story about superheroes and their first superhero union. It's the idea of how these guys are going to do what they're doing, and it's a lot of characters that are created based on 1962 noir. It's a decent idea. It's one I'd at least flip through. Because you got to admit, a superhero union is a little different. Let me see. Entertainment Earth has announced some of their San Diego Comic-Con exclusives. There's one here I would kind of buy, but I don't quite know about because they've created a bobblehead out of the ambiguously gay duo. And it's not quite a bobblehead because the thing on the spring is the two of them in flight mode.
Oh, God.
Oh, man.
That's a conversation piece for sure.
No.
Let me see. Another Comic-Con exclusive that's been announced is that Viz Media is going to have a 1/6 scale Naruto statue. The fourth Hokage coat version. It's going to be sold at the Viz Media booth, number 2813 at San Diego Comic-Con. It's going to be priced at $150. What, are you going to ask me to go try and get something for you?
Don't have the money.
In further news, I told you guys about the Comic-Con resale that usually happens in June. You know, they sell badges that have been canceled or returned. They've canceled that this year for the first time ever.
Wow.
They have had so few cancellations and returns, they don't have anything to sell. Some shit. You know, that's kind of frightening when you think about it.
It's a lot of people going, nope, I'm going.
Yeah, according to the article, there's probably a lot of people that realize what they have in their hands are probably dancing around their living rooms with their confirmation pages, singing, "'Cause I've got a golden ticket." There's a comic book prequel coming for the Godzilla movie. The screenwriter actually let it sleep that there's going to be a prequel called Godzilla Awakening, which is an 80-page story by Max Borenstein and his cousin Greg. It's taking place in Japan in the aftermath of World War II and shows some of the characters portrayed in the film and when they first encounter Godzilla. Why he rises from the depths of the oceans to fight things. I'm it's one of those things where I don't think I can touch this until after the movie's done, because I want to be shocked on the screen. I still want to read it. And last bit of general comic book news is there is a competition right now where you can win 2 passes for the San Diego Symphony Orchestra during Comic-Con weekend. That includes their shows of Video Games Live on Thursday, June 24th or July 24th. Danny Elfman's music from the films of Tim Burton on Friday, June 25th, and screening the Star Trek movie with orchestral accompaniment on Saturday, June 26th. You can get the tickets yourselves from anywhere from $25 to $90. I don't know if you want to do that.
The one that I'm most interested in would be the Thursday night one, and that's probably when we're going to be getting there.
You still don't quite know your schedule for Thursday?
We're driving.
Yeah, we will be coming up on Thursday.
Okay.
Just seems to be the way it's probably going to happen.
All right, well, we'll add a link so that people can have a chance to enter the giveaway, but actually they may not see it by the time the show goes up because the contest ends in 3 days and 15 hours.
Yeah.
There's only been 566 entries, too, so your odds are actually fairly good. In anime Japan news, also short, the first one is that Attack on Titan's 3DS game is getting, or it may get a U.S. release. It launched in Japan last December, and the game sold 93,000 copies in its first week.
Wow.
Spike Chunsoft is said to be seeking a publisher to bring it over to the U.S. That wouldn't be a bad thing right now. Attack on Titan is one of those series that's gaining a hell of a fan following. Still not for me though. The physics of it. The show I don't understand the physics of.
I just don't need to be that depressed that that movie is considered a tragedy for good reason.
Well, the show's a tragedy, but it's just that I also get bothered by the physics of the rigs they use. They don't work as far as human bodies and what they can sustain.
I don't know. The fact that they have giants walking around and the physics of that, kind of leads me to believe that physics has kind of been thrown out regardless.
I just get insulted because the creator of this series said when he created the rigs, he consulted an engineer and a physiologist, and they must have been high school dropouts, frankly, because it just doesn't make sense to me. Japan is talking about banning 3D printers, or at least heavily restricting their use, because they found a problem. There was a guy recently walking around. He was a 28-year-old university employee. He possessed illegal firearms, and when they did a raid of his home, they uncovered 5 gun-like objects, 2 of which were just capable of firing lethal rounds, and they were created by 3D printers.
Oh, CSA got it right.
Yeah, I saw a picture of it. There's a couple of devices that look like they're one-shot items. You'd have to load a bullet manually into these things, but they do look capable of firing around. So when you have something like this coming out with a relatively benign technology of 3D printers, I can imagine restricting their use would be rather important. It's like when people in this country complain because there's designs of weapons that can be created on 3D printers in this country. I don't think that should be general public consumption.
Yeah, no. And especially because, depending on the material you print it from and everything else, then you've got security issues with metal detectors and so forth. And yeah,
I'm in agreement with that. I understand the Second Amendment and why some people thump it. I don't agree with it personally. But at the same time, if your main complaint is going to be the mental status of people who use guns and not guns themselves, then you should really also restrict the information out there about how to create guns. Because that means anybody, regardless of their mental state, can grab it and use it. It's one of those cyclical arguments. I completely understand, but it's just my feeling on the matter. And the last bit of anime news I have is that Attack on Titan also has a T-shirt coming out, and it goes with Steve's idea of the series. I'll post a link so you guys can see it. It is it's a takeoff on the Obama Hope posters during the campaigns, and it's a black T-shirt with a Titans picture on it, and underneath, in the same blue and red as the Obama pictures, but underneath it says "No Hope."
No.
Yeah, see, I'm looking at the face of these Titans, too, and I just don't think that's how faces work. I don't think that's where the tendon placement is. Getting back on a tangent again. We also have Nerd Interest News, which has some interesting stuff attached to it. Let me see. There's an underwater pyramid that was found near Portugal. In the Azores region, there's the discovery of a very large underwater pyramid that was found by Diocleretano Silva between the islands of São Miguel and Terceira. It's in the Azores region of Portugal.
So that's where we left Atlantis.
Using GPS technology, they estimate the pyramid is at 60 meters with a base of 8,000 square meters. That's one of those freaky discoveries because that means there's whole segments of our history we just may not have a clue about. I really hope this story isn't fake because this is one of those things that, it could change our world. And you could be right. For all we know, this is where Atlantis went down. Maybe there was an island that had a volcanic event and just went down. Or we lost an entire shelf of a continent. I don't know. It is in an area populated by islands, so anything's possible.
It's kind of interesting that, because as far as I know, we've had pyramids in Egypt. We've had, the pyramid temples and, the Incans, but there's been no pyramids in that area before, as I recall. Geography is not my strong point, so
But that isn't to say that the parts for it couldn't have been shipped. I understand it's an island, resources would be minimal, but at this point, that's when the Spaniards were kind of going wild in Central America. So there's a story here, assuming it's all real, because first we got to find out whose it is. DARPA has an interesting concept because they want to teach drones the meaning of teamwork. And when I say teamwork, it's the kind of teamwork you write about in video games. Here's what I mean. They want to create a different set of drones. You know how drones are kind of standardized. They all have the same weapons, the same camera systems. They all function basically the same purpose. Rain fire from the sky and occasionally spy on things, right? They want to create specialized drones. They want drones that specialize in camera work. Some drones that specialize in light weaponry. Some drones that specialize in armor-busting equipment.
So we get loadouts.
So they basically want to... Yeah, they want to create the Team 7 of drones. It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, especially because considering I there's probably cheaper to build some than others, so...
Well, yeah, if you're building one that's just camera equipment, that means you can make it lighter, reduce its radar profile, and probably increase the camera filters on it to the point where you can get all kinds of visual acuity out of it. Then you have another one that just flies low to the ground and heavy. You hear it coming. That's because it's loaded with fucking Hellfire missiles. There might even be one with a Gatling chain on it. It just has nothing but a heavy, I guess you could say, Uncle Gazpacho. Let me see. There's been scientific evidence, apparently, that youthful blood can reverse the effects of aging. Did you hear about this study?
No.
Scientists from Stanford University took blood from younger mice and injected it into older mice. I don't think they've empirically drained the sucker dry. But they found out that some of the enzymes in the younger blood could help rejuvenate the cells of elder mice. It's an interesting idea, but you know, in my mind, I'm just like, that's interesting. Could the young actually help the old feel younger? And is there suddenly going to be a problem because old people with lots of money are going to start stealing kids off the street? And
That's what I'm like, I can see so much going wrong with this.
You know, Jeremy, you kind of beat me to the punch when you mentioned vampires, but that was the first thing that came across my mind when you started the story.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting idea and concept. You know, it could really help extend the lives of people who have maybe debilitating blood problems. But at the same time, you know, the older people with money, there's too much in this to abuse.
Yeah.
The first thing I thought of actually was Batman.
You know, this brings a whole new slew of jokes to a person opening up a white van and saying, "Here, kid, want some candy?" Freak day.
I'm going to have to take off, guys. I'm sorry. Mother's Day breakfast.
There's also a story that two suns could raise the chances of a moon supporting life.
A what?
Apparently, a binary star system increases the heat in a system, and they say that could increase the likelihood that not planets, but moons in a system could be capable of supporting life as we understand it. I guess it would make sense. The increased heat would probably make the planets unlivable, but would make the moons much more habitable, presumably. I couldn't say for sure because this is still kind of a foreign concept.
It could also expand the habitat zone, too.
That could very well be. It would make a very large habitable zone, but much further out than we're used to in stars, I would guess. Let me see. Scientists have also tinkered with the brains of mice recently. Mice have it hard. A Caltech research group led by David J. Anderson started identifying a set of neurons in the hypothalamus of the brains of mice that are active during social behaviors. What they found out is by tweaking these neurons, they could turn mice that were very benign and kind of ambivalent to their neighbors into mice capable of just, in a pinch, beating the shit out of their neighbors.
Oh, crap. Now we just got to get some mice from Japan and call them Splinter.
I was going to think maybe this is how Wolverine started. But it is kind of a scary concept because now we have scientists that have figured out that if you take the blood from the young and give it to the elderly feel much better. Now we've found ways to key into the brain and turn people who are just kind of normal into fighters. It's like we've found the concepts for Morbius, the living vampire, and fucking Dollhouse in science.
Yeah, 10 more years we'll have, God, lost my train of thought. Damn it.
10 more years and we'll have the X-Men.
That's scary.
How about this for tweaking with brains? There are 10 potential superpowers that humans could get from brain implants. All of a sudden, my conversation just came right around in a circle, didn't it? They say that a tiny computer chip embedded in your brain could have the following side effects, which would be very beneficial. Hear a conversation from across the room or in a crowded club. We already have implants capable of that. Give you the ability to see in the dark. FDA-approved retinal implants can restore the ability to see motion and shapes. But as the underlying ocular nerve improves, better versions of these implants could give you the vision of a cat.
Cats?
Yeah, which, for all I know, that means that not only can I see in the dark, that means I'm going to start rubbing up against the couch
Cats see in the dark via their whiskers. That's why they're always against the wall.
That's how they touch in the dark. They're talking about actual night vision. Cats actually do have a good level of night vision. Not perfect, but that's why the whiskers are at supplements. Let me see. The implants could give you the sight that can zoom in on things far away. Apparently, it's a retinal implant that's already possible for this. They can make you better at math and navigation. They'll make you Asian?
Hey, I'm not that good at math anymore.
Let me see. They'll allow you to download skills like in the Matrix.
All right, that's kind of awesome.
That's kind of awesome, but I don't know if I want a USB port in the back of my skull. They can restore damaged memories. They really can use electrodes to stimulate brain tissue and unlock memories that may be submerged.
Well, if you don't want to remember them.
Cure depression. Cure depression and control mood. Hello, psychopaths. Enhanced focus and energy, like stimulants without the drugs. Oh, that's just what I need. Are we creating fucking super soldiers here?
I think they're trying.
How about this? You can be Tony Stark. Control machines with your mind.
I want that.
And search the web and translate languages. Apparently that's all, if not possible now, will be possible in the near future. I don't want somebody poking around in my brain that much. Let alone, could you imagine if there's a software error and you go from English and instantly switch into Cantonese? That would
or worse, and, you get a programming to hack your brain and make you do shit.
I know that scares me to no end. The last bit of general nerd interest I have is that there's an advanced prosthetic arm that's been approved by the FDA for use in the U.S. market.
Okay.
It doesn't have a sense of touch, but it's a plastic and inflatable arm that reacts to muscle movements in the amputated limb and responds like an arm can. This would go in place of the hooks, which is currently the most advanced prosthetic we have for consumer use. And it reads the signals from muscle movements and could make it possible for people to feed themselves, clothe themselves. They're so acute in their movements, they can actually use a zipper with this.
Damn.
Yeah. They've given examples that you could even use keys and locks, feed themselves, and brush their hair.
That's impressive.
This is the kind of stuff I'm pissed off about, though, because this technology already exists, but it's gone through so much red tape that it's finally being allowed for use in the U.S. You're one of the last ones to use beneficial products in this country until somebody figures out how to key up the profit margin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's all this shit out in the world that could really help, but no, we're too busy lining pockets. Last bit I have is what the fuck news, which is generally the news that either makes us the happiest or the saddest during the week.
Or anxious.
This one made me happy. Seth Rogen, we discussed him a little earlier. He's a writer and a TV actor. He may have turned into one of my biggest heroes on the planet.
Oh,
because he's been going that Justin Bieber is a dick. And I don't mean that as a euphemism. I mean, he's literally said Justin Bieber is a dick. He's met him twice, and on both occasions, Bieber was either nonplussed or just rather rude. So he has said in interviews he's a dick. He said at one time he was playing a club, and somebody knocked on the door and said, Justin Bieber wants to meet you. So he came out, and when he talked to Justin, Bieber said that, Bieber told Rogan, so I heard you wanted to meet me. So, of course, Rogan's just kind of, what the fuck? If you want to meet me, fine. Don't act so fucking nonplussed about it. And a few years later, he saw Bieber at a red carpet event where Bieber's walking around with a snake on his arm like it's a bracelet. He says, quote, I talked to him for like 5 minutes. No humility, no awareness, no sense that I appeal to young people. Maybe a grown man who works in comedy doesn't give a fucking shit about me. Maybe I should act in such a way that perhaps this isn't the greatest experience of his fucking life. I remember thinking, he's a piece of shit, unquote. There's really anything else that needs to be said about this little dick. Speaking of celebrities and what the fuck news, there's a story that Bill Murray tried to choke out a comedian.
Huh.
Way back in the 80s when Bill Murray was still relatively new, there was this up-and-coming comedian named Martin Mull. Okay? And Bill Murray was at the National Lampoon show. He was performing on stage. Mull was up in the front row and talking with a friend of his throughout the performance.
Oh.
Now, Mull admitted he was half drunk during the time, and they thought they were having an interesting conversation. They didn't realize how loud they were being. But Mull went backstage after the show because he wanted to meet the actors, and Murray came through the crowd, put his hands around his neck, and screaming, I'll kill him! I'll kill that fucker! He talked through the whole thing! I hate him! According to Michael O'Donoghue, Bill Murray had to be restrained by John Belushi. And then when Martin left the dressing room, Murray kept screaming after him, medium talent! Medium talent! Now, I know Murray has an ego, but it's a well-earned ego. The man's kind of a legend in the comedic circles, and he's trying to build a dramatic career that he's always wanted. He always feels he's been kind of typecast as a comedian. Choking the life out of a man is a bit much. And Mull has said, quote, I feel very bad about that show. I had a bit to drink, and quite frankly, it was more amusing at that point to talk to Peter, whom I hadn't seen in a long time. I confess to having been extremely rude, though not quite as rude as Bill Murray trying to strangle me afterwards, unquote.
Yeah, there's a different level when you start choking someone out.
That's at least Mull has a sense of humor about it. I don't think Murray's ever discussed it, and I don't think anybody should ever ask him about
I don't think it's one of his proudest moments.
No, I would argue that, absolutely. Black Milk Clothing is a clothing line that sells specifically to geeky girls. They sell leggings and dresses and all kinds of stuff, right? Swimsuits, too. They're where you can find those C-3PO and R2-D2 swimsuits. Okay. They have made a misstep, and they don't think they have.
Okay.
On their social media, they put up a picture that shows this lovely tattooed girl wearing an R2-D2 swimsuit, and it says above the picture, expectation. Then right next to it, they show a picture of Mayim Bialik in the Big Bang Theory in a Star Trek dress, looking kind of mousy and dour as she's supposed to in the show. It says above this picture, reality.
I've seen that.
Now, people got kind of upset that this business makes its living selling clothes to geeky girls, and now has just kind of made fun of the idea that these girls are trying to dress up at all. Trying to look better, as if it's not possible. So some people responded very negatively on their social media. They don't like this idea. Black Milk Clothing decided to respond, and not only did these people respond negatively on their Facebook, several people were banned from their Facebook after making comments. In other words, they didn't like all this negative attention. Black Milk responded by saying, quote, "We did the decision to ban people and delete comments because it wasn't conducted for a positive environment, and that's all we're trying to create here. It was clear to me we weren't going to be able to make some people happy, and they weren't going to unlike the page, so we made the decision that was best for business. We're happy for people who speak their minds, but not in the space where it might ruin it for other people, even the people in the photo, because based on the likes, there were a lot of people who enjoyed that joke," unquote. That's only part of their responses. My response is, the fuck are you talking about? Because several people have complained they were banned from that page for doing nothing more than looking at the comments. They didn't even actively take part in the conversation. Secondly, it's social media. If you're not going to allow a little back and forth, why even have it?
Sounds like they took that one program YouTube's been running around with that's fundamentally flawed.
Yeah, it's pretty stupid, in my opinion, to make fun of your fan base and then not allow them to express their outrage. They are your entire fan base. You're selling your clothes specifically to geeks, and they're mad. I used to follow Black Milk Clothing because they had some entertaining clothes, and my wife was interested in it. I've unliked them simply because I don't see a reason to buy their products anymore. If they're going to make fun of the people they sell to, then what's the point?
Yep.
Did you see that a dinosaur threw out a first pitch? There was a Padres game recently, San Diego Padres. There was a velociraptor that threw out the first pitch of the game. I don't mean a flesh and bones velociraptor, but it was one of those people in those walking with dinosaur suits, those velociraptor simulations. He was actually in costume, had the ball in his mouth, and tossed it to the catcher. He was out there on the pitcher's mound. There's even a video. Would you like to see the video?
Yeah, sure.
It's only 39 seconds long, and it's kind of a trip to watch.
And if you think Cashner's big, that's nothing compared to the Raptor.
You even have video of this thing walking out, little hairs on his back all the way out to the mound.
Pitches I've ever seen, Rhino. Check this out. I need that costume to take home.
It didn't make it to the catcher, but it did actually head in the direction of the catcher, which is kind of surprising. It's nice to know he has that level of control. And then it threatened the catcher.
They have interesting...
And then it stomped his way off.
Here was this last year, a couple years ago? Circus du Soleil guy.
And he
threw
some
more than
impressive.
Right-handed.
Yeah.
How old?
Unique. It's fucking unique, to say the least.
Honestly, it almost looks like it was digitally inserted, but seeing it walk in and say, holy crap.
No. Yeah, it's a live man in a suit. It's kind of an impressive thing to do. It wouldn't make me buy tickets to a baseball game, but it's interesting that they kept their mind that open. Or maybe the Padres just need people in the seats that badly. Why does it seem like a whole lot of our WTF news comes from Japan?
Japan?
Yeah, we're back over here. There was a taxi driver who's been arrested after drugging a female fare with a diuretic. You know what diuretics do, right? They make you pee yourself. They help you pee and poo. That's literally what a diuretic does. And he drugged him with a diuretic. They weren't knocked out. He actually took video of this woman begging to go to a toilet, and he refused to let her go.
I think there's some laws against that.
Yeah, like I said, he was arrested. He provided this woman with sweets. He's a 41-year-old Osaka taxi driver, and provided her with sweets laced with a powerful diuretic. She begged him to let her off so she could go to the toilet, and he refused and kept driving. He caused her to wet herself in the back of the cab. He also had secret cameras in his vehicle so he could record the whole thing. After this particular incident came to light, he was arrested. And in statements to the police, he said, quote, "I filmed about 50 young women urinating." The behavior and expressions of the women desperately holding it in turned me on, unquote.
There's a special place in hell for him?
Well, there's a special place in prison, too, because they charge him with assault and unlawful imprisonment. Man, I don't understand some people. Just like I don't understand the police in Japan sometimes, because there's another story here that says another man was arrested. He's a 34-year-old Juku instructor. He was on board a Kagoshima Prefecture commuter train, and he found himself seated with a 16-year-old high school girl. He tried to strike up a conversation, and he shook hands with her. The girl found herself unable to refuse this, and they shook hands. He found himself arrested not long later under anti-molestation laws for the handshake.
Huh?
Yeah. Police will actually arrest you for attempting to shake hands with young girls on commuter trains. It's a little too defensive, don't you think? I mean, striking up a conversation with her, okay. Shaking hands, not exactly destructive. But why is that a crime?
I don't know.
Yeah. It just tells me if I ever go to Japan, I can't talk to anyone under the age of 21, just for my own safety. We're not exactly safe in this country either. Danzig is suing us. Glen Danzig, lead singer from the heavy metal band Danzig, he's suing us. He's literally suing us. And that's not a euphemism. He's suing you, me, and everyone else on the planet.
Okay. Where did he get the big balls to do that?
This is not a joke. And it's not even a combined suit. It's multiple lawsuits. And one of his suits is against the 1.6 billion citizens of the People's Republic of China for building thousands of environmentally hazardous coal plants without consulting him or giving him proper credit for the invention of coal.
What's he smoking?
I don't know. And he's had a few lawsuits thrown out, but the judge was such a fan of his music, he allowed 2.5 billion of his lawsuits because he, quote, greatly admired Danzig's first solo tour albums and even a few songs by Sam Hain.
Oh, it's
unquote.
fine to be a fan, but really?
Dude, Danzig, one of his suits is a $500,000 suit against Carol Mosley. She's a tax accountant in Boise, Idaho, for listening to the song How the Gods Kill, one of his songs, without headbanging during the part where the song gets really heavy and go forward. He's suing this lady for not headbanging.
I'm pretty sure there's a code of conduct she must respect at her job site.
He says he also has a $1.2 million suit against Edward Callahan. He's a construction worker in Sacramento, California. Because in 2011, Callahan laughed hysterically at Danzig's famed discussion of his book collection, where he talks about the crimes of Jesus, clay people, and the occult roots of Nazism. Because he laughed at a book, or his book, he's getting sued. He has a $600 million lawsuit against the tyranny of tradition for implying that he gave birth to identical twin girls, a suit that would bankrupt the writer of the article and his progeny for the next 3,000 years. And that suit is going forward. More than a bit crazy. He brought over 40 billion documents into court by an entire fleet of Federal Express trucks, and he's acting as his own attorney. Why could the judge not see how stupid this is?
I'm wondering who's crazier, that one guy or the judge?
I don't know. The judge has allowed so many cases that they'll be heard over the next 5 centuries. I enjoyed Danzig's early music, but at this point, I would kind of have to throw out my CD.
My head hurts.
Yeah. We have another story from across the ocean, but this one is China. And it's WTF not because anybody did anything necessarily weird, but just because of its bad execution. China has really been into plastic surgery lately, and they've gotten worse at it somehow. In 2012, they had kind of a plastic surgery renaissance. They were doing things pretty well. 2014, they've gone horribly wrong.
What the?
There's a Chinese woman that are actual comparisons of. In 2012, she looks okay. In 2014, she looks like she was subject to some kind of wax accident. You know, she had additional plastic surgeries. It just made her look worse. It looks like her face is drooping. It looks like her cheeks are able to be mashed into her face. What is with that chin, though? It looks like someone inserted an adolescent scrotum under her skin.
No, I'm at a loss for words.
I would not go out in public with that face. And I'm not saying that to say she's done anything necessarily horrible, but her doctor owes her a hell of an apology. Her face actually looked more wrinkled after her 2014 surgeries than it did in 2012. I just hope it's not like the bridges and they're shoving garbage in people's faces. Last bit of WTF news I have is an interesting one. I'm going to send you an image of a Chinese girl. Rather interesting looking girl. She's a cosplayer named Aho.
Mm-hmm.
She created Sir in China, Taiwan, and Japan for cosplay. Very cute little girl, right? Not a girl.
Oh, crap.
Recently discovered that this is a boy. I don't think there's any pictures that exist of this guy outside of costume, but he's gained quite a reputation as a lolly and a cute cosplayer. But nobody knew until recently this was a boy. I'm going to send you the full story because his cosplays are actually really good. He knows the right facial expressions, he knows body placement, and the costumes are very good. It's just a lot of people didn't know until the last week or so this is a guy. Even the mannerisms are very feminine. I gotta say kudos to him on his cosplays. It's just, you know how people are when they're attracted to somebody, then they find out they're the opposite gender. They kind of lose their crap. Oh, wait. Hang on. Oh, this story has an update to it that wasn't up until recently. The story's false. Aho is not a male. There was a story in online rumors that had supposed proof that Aho is a boy. Many of the readers pointed out the information is false, and the cosplayer has been plagued by this rumor for some time. Aho is, in fact, a girl. May have to cut this out in post. Actually, I may keep this in because that's another unfortunate, jump to conclusion stories that the internet is so good at producing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's another case where enough people voice a rumor as truth without proof of before they start writing the stories, and that's unfortunate. At least they managed to reverse this in short order. Man, that must be hell for this young girl to occasionally get asked if you're a boy. That's sad. Oh, well, at least it won't affect what she's going to do. This week's conversation is actually about the independent comic book series Empire. Empire is an interesting story that came out... Empire, I think, came out in the 90s. And it's the story of a Doctor Doom-style dictator named Golgoth who actually succeeded in his quest to take over the world. It's a very dark story because the heroes have lost already. He's already in control of most of the world with the exception of a scattered resistance movement. And he has an inner circle of ministers, which are kind of what you would expect from supervillains. They're capable, they're strong, but they're also very likely to cut your throat if you insult them the wrong way. That includes amongst each other in this story. I remember reading it a while ago and being kind of caught up in it, simply because the story is very unlike a lot of things I had read prior. Jesse, what were your early opinions on this one?
Well, if I had to go by with issue 0, I was thoroughly bored and unimpressed, but... Well,
I think issue 0 came out afterwards. I don't think that was part of the initial release, because I remember reading 1 through 6. 0 was kind of new to me.
But read 1 through 6, it's like, okay, it's interesting. But I was like, fuck. It's progressively getting more. There's a level of intrigue. Saying, oh god, what the hell is going to happen next?
I know. It had a good sense of reveals, even though you already know that the world is pretty much effed up and is not very likely to be saved. The reveal in the first issue we find out early on in the story that he's controlling and augmenting his primary counsel with a drug called Eucharist.
Yeah.
He's creating a drug from an unknown source that is giving them enhanced physical abilities. And I wouldn't say flight or super strength, but it's definitely extra human. I guess you could say it turns every one of them into Captain America. That'd be a fair way to put it? Okay. And you find out towards the end of the first issue, he's not distilling this from any kind of weird plant. He's not making a chemical. He's taking it directly from the blood of his worst enemy that he's kept alive all this time. A Superman style of superhero. And that first reveal is really a whole kind of what the fuck moment in the middle of all this stuff going on. And as much as I was horrified by it when I read it, I still remember thinking, this is the coolest idea I've ever heard. What, you disagree?
it's morbid for me. I tend to shy away from stuff like that. That's just my personal preferences.
I just thought it was superbly interesting. The information minister was kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
Man just up into a suit, just running computers all the time. It's very creepy. I mean, it's a bit 90s, but it's still an interesting series, let alone the fact that this dictator had a wife who died a long time ago, and he's raising his daughter by himself in addition to running this empire.
Yeah.
And it turns out the daughter has an entire life he's not aware of, sleeping with one of the inner council. Trying to steal bits of this drug just for her own personal use and
having
stuff.
her own bit of psychosis going on.
Yeah, more in a bit. There's all kinds of security personnel, and you slowly, over the course of these issues, get to know more and more about these people. They did add an interesting humanizing element in this series that I think the Marvel writers were just starting to attribute to Doctor Doom. They did a very good job of establishing how this guy is not just he's not just a dictator, but he's also a person of one sort or another. It is kind of difficult to put in words. This is one of those series that's better described just in the plain read than it is in words, because it's so unlike most other comic books. And it's not even that it's not even like Attack on Titan that's devoid of hope. This series has a bunch of hope in it, in the hopes that maybe Golgoth will become a little bit more humanitarian. Maybe some of his inner council will have a chance of turning against him and actually turning the world into a better place. But as the story goes along, you realize that they're not very likely to make a better place in this story. If they take over, they're very likely to keep it just as effed up.
Yeah.
It's true. They're just as likely to break everything as the guy in charge. The second issue had what was an interesting betrayal, as the Minister of Defense is working with the Resistance to try to kill Golgoth.
The thing for that guy's, when I came to that point, I felt like this guy just only wants to fucking fight. He doesn't care whose side he's on. He just wants to fucking fight.
That's definitely the early portrayal, and it led to some interesting story down the road for sure. And the series kept pretty good pace throughout. There was a lot of quiet moments interspaced with some heavy action. Little gory at times, but this came out, I think, in the late 90s, about the time that would have been pretty frackin' normal. It's still just kind of horrifying how he's distilling blood directly out of the superhero, just for the sake of creating this drug. And then the hero drops a bomb on him that he thinks that this Golgoth's wife was murdered, not accidentally died.
No, I had listening to his inner thoughts. Dude fucking lost it.
I know, and that was just something that even this guy didn't comprehend. I don't think he thought anybody was capable of betraying him in such a real way. It is also interesting that this was kind of the idea of the superhero who's completely caught and can't get away, but he's still fighting in some form. He's just figured out how to do it mentally instead of physically. Gotta hand it to him. For a guy who's beaten, he's definitely showing a lot of resolve. You know what I mean?
I think... I understand the resolve, but it's kind of hopeless for him, to be honest.
It is. He may be waiting for an opening that I just don't see yet, The fourth issue has to do a lot more with the interpersonal relationships between a lot of the characters. It has a lot of backstory about Golgoth's wife.
Yeah.
Also shows that some of these people who are showing some independence and maybe some hope are still just as effed up, like the two women who seem like they found a bit of happiness, but they kind of cut away and show that bit of happiness also involves a guy in a leather mask and a tutu who hasn't had a drink of water in 2 days. It was one of those things where as I'm first reading going, that's cute, they found each other. Holy shit, what'd they do to him? And then a murder occurs where unfortunately, one of the council killed another member of the council, but the guy that was accused of it didn't even do anything.
Yep.
Looked like he was about to, but he didn't actually do what they thought he was going to do. So he gets in a natural amount of trouble. And then the fifth issue isn't even the last issue of this series, but it's where the whole thing kind of turns on its head. Right?
Oh, what?
The resistance makes its move.
Right.
And they're actually starting to make some headway. The daughter of Golgoth is revealed as the one who killed her own mother because she wanted Golgoth to retain his path as a dictator, and she thought her own mother was softening him too much.
Yeah. Oh.
And in the same issue, we also find out that the Resistance is being given technology and
Insight.
and aid, by a group of aliens, for freak's sake, who think that this world has a chance to encroach on their empires if Golgoth's allowed to continue. The whole thing took this weird Machiavellian turn, and it takes a little bit of time to stick with it. You really have to kind of look backwards and see how all these threads are pulling together. But when it all goes down, freaking horrible. Let alone that in that moment when, Delphi, the daughter of Golgoth, is just kind of arguing with her boyfriend, and then Golgoth appears with the object that she gave her boyfriend, obviously saying, "You ain't fooling shit, motherfucker."
Oh, I just was looking to break the he shit out. It's almost priceless.
Oh, absolutely. The guy that rules the world teleports, has mastery of magic and technology, and a drug that is making you the badass you are, and he just revealed that you can't keep shit from him without him knowing about it. That's got to be one of those moments where you just know nothing good is going to happen here. It was surprising the fact that he actually let this guy go with the edict that he's never allowed to return. I'm surprised he was allowed to live at all.
I think Golgoth just loves his daughter that much. He's not willing to he's willing to protect that innocence there.
Yeah, but he realized in the next panel when she sold out her ex-boyfriend as the murderer of the council member to security guards just to show that she could be that smart and betray people like he could. That was that moment where he knew this was good. This could not be saved. This is like Lizzie in The Walking Dead. There is no coming back for this person.
And then the snap.
Yeah, he broke her neck. I mean, what else can you do? Because she's shown that even people she cares for won't matter to her in the end. She may have said all these right things, Daddy, I did it for you. Daddy, I want to be just like you. But the fact is that if she's going to be just like him, she may kill him.
That's the thing. Is she believes she knows what the guy is. He has his reasons to do what he's doing. She has a delusional idea of it.
Yeah, that's why I think it's important to draw the Doctor Doom comparison to this character. Because Doctor Doom may be controlling everything rather iron-fisted, but he still believes he's saving the world. And I think that's what this guy believes, is he's stopping the world from falling into chaos by controlling it rigidly. And then he finds out that his daughter is one of those people capable of sowing that type of chaos, frankly. He doesn't understand the difference between leading people and ruling people. I think that's a fair way to put it. And unfortunately, his daughter proved herself capable of tearing down the Empire. Even if she didn't think she was going to do it, obviously she's figured out the ways to manipulate people to get everything done. She manipulated them emotionally, she manipulated them physically, and then when everything started to turn down for her, she turned it up to the point where she got what she wanted.
And the thing is, she did this all without his knowledge. It's like...
Yeah. And she's the one thing in his empire that you would think he understood completely, and he didn't understand her at all. He understood everything else much better.
It's almost a bit heartbreaking to watch him and hug his daughter, hug his lifeless daughter like that.
It was a very visceral, very real type of moment. And when you think about it, he did try to insulate her from his world. He created a normal bedroom in the middle of his iron citadel there for her to exist in, but she still found her ways to connect with his world. And it failed him. It was a very sad... Sorry. It was a very sad moment where he was trying to save her, and he couldn't do it. He just couldn't. And I think he realizes that part of that is a side effect of what he's created, but at the same time, everything else is going for him so well. I mean, it may be the worst failure he's ever had, but it's kind of the only failure he's ever had. So he's probably not going to see a reason to stop what he's doing at all. In fact, at the end, the Resistance was fighting him, and instead of sending his best lieutenants to do their job, which it turns out the security minister was an utter betrayer who was about to shoot them all, instead, Golgoth himself teleported to the front lines. The minister bowed down like he was supposed to as their double agent, and he took them on himself.
Lead by example?
Oh, he didn't take the video game or the comic book supervillain route. He didn't place increasingly difficult enemies for people to learn from and slaughter. He just went down there himself and said, okay, main boss battle.
But it's just the first level. Too bad.
Well, you should have found the special item. You know, he took them all on. He scared the aliens into running and killing their main contact on Earth. And, you know, unfortunately, you could also say that because his minister found out who was behind all this, the actions of the aliens are probably going to force him into expanding his empire, because now he knows there's something else out there. And now he doesn't have the emotional tether that Delphi was. There was a possibility for a second series that never came around, and the fact that one council member who was accused of murder he didn't commit is still out there. So they left this thing open for an entire series of stories that just never happened. And I don't think it didn't happen because of writing, because I think this was a solid series throughout, frankly. I just think it was one of those stories that didn't... it probably didn't grab readers because it's not associated with the big two companies, even as an Elseworlds type item or an alternative universe.
That's probably a strong possibility.
It's a theory. It's not one I can really put fingers to. But, you know, I just think that... I do think this is very strong writing. I think Miller's penchant for writing his own stories, including stuff like Kick-Ass and Nemesis, really marked him as one of the greatest writers of the current comic book era. But because he keeps releasing them on independent ways so that he can keep his rights to himself instead of sharing them with Marvel or DC, I think that's the only thing hurting it and why this series wasn't better grabbed by readers. I mean, what did you think of the overall story?
I'm not going to pretend I understand story structure and whatnot, because I really don't. English was my...
I'm just saying, when I make my comparisons, I don't mean story structure. I mean he's going independent so he can retain control of these things 100%, so he doesn't have to share it with the big companies that usually have the work-for-hire contracts. Well, remember, we've read several stories where the estates of creators are suing Marvel and DC unsuccessfully for the rights to characters that they've created. Simply because those characters were created under contracts that says, you create for us, we own that. When Miller has to release a series like Empire and Kick-Ass outside of those contracts, they get to retain 100% of the characters, but they don't get the exposure that these series need.
I will be honest, if you actually went mainstream with either of those two, this story would probably not have been as good.
Also very likely. It also means that these things don't make it into the hands of as many readers as your X-Men or your Justice League or things like that. Because I thought the series on a whole was extremely solid. But what did you think of the entirety of the series?
That was a fascinating read. I mean, even going against my own personal dispositions, this was very solid.
Yeah. I especially like that Miller managed to write several twists throughout the series so that there was something in each book that made you go, no frickin' way. You know, the betrayals of people, the fact that Delphi was more of an adult than Golgoth ever thought, the fact that he's distilling the blood of his greatest enemy to give as a drug, the reveal of aliens, the reveal of Delphi as a murderer, the reveal that the man that betrayed him didn't betray him but pulled off the greatest service in the history of his empire. Every issue had something incredible in it that just made you go, no freaking way. And it wasn't even like a last page reveal. It was usually in the middle of the book where you just went, there's more? You know, I think this is a great series for people to read, and I think it's an example of the kind of writing you need to make comic books a respected medium. To show that the comic books are not just fringe entertainment where people just see people blast lasers from their eyes. There's actual story content in here. So I do think this is one of those things. I don't think you can find a trade paperback on this because the sales numbers were not that high. But if you can go to your comic shop, and you can probably find these for about $1.50 an issue, I think it's well worth it. You know, you'll get a very different insight inside psychology, and this is another example of how Miller can take the superhero genre, turn it upside down, and make an incredible story out of it. That was actually one of the stories I couldn't find that I was trying to verify, was that one of his other stories, Nemesis, is being made into a movie.
Really?
Yeah, Nemesis I'm sure you're not familiar with because it's another independent story. Think of him as the anti-Batman. You have a rich guy whose parents died, and he took out his frustrations by putting on a costume, and instead of righting the wrongs of his parents' death, he wants to take it out on the officer investigating it, who never figured out who killed his parents. The guy turned into the ultimate supervillain, And he wouldn't test himself by finding costume people to fight. He would test himself by finding investigators in different countries and figuring out if he could lure them into elaborate traps just to murder them. I read the first couple of issues before I lost track of it, and I wanted to read the rest. But he found an inspector in Tokyo that he lured out into train tracks just to be run over by a subway. You know, the man's an incredible fighter. He hires gangs of people. It literally is the anti-Batman. I need to see if I can find the rest of that because I do want to finish that story. It's scary. But they're making a movie out of it. Fox Movies picked it up. I don't think the white spandex would come across well on screen. You might have to change that a bit. But I think the story on a whole, yeah, I'd want to read that. Besides which, Batman's crazy enough to do it. You know, he is. I don't have anything else. I know Steve left early and V couldn't make it because she had overtime. Next week, though, everyone has to be available because we have, I'm going to confirm it, but we have 3 people from the City of Titans team coming.
Damn.
And a lot of the NDAs that War Cabot talked about last time we had him have dropped. They're going to start talking production with us. Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of detailed questions we're going to have to ask. Let alone they've released. Have you seen they released a couple teaser trailers lately?
The one with the engine.
Do you mean the one where they built that Roman pavilion?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting, but I mean that wasn't necessarily what they were building. It was just an example of the engine. That makes me excited because they can build some great detail in there. The other thing, though, is they released a teaser trailer because they're in production mode, and it showed like some wireframes of the city they're building.
No.
Did you see that one? Let me see if I can find that before we go here, because I know we've been here 2.5 hours, but by our show's comparison, this has been kind of short.
Yeah.
It's also based on the Unreal Engine. Some people may look at this and not get too excited about it, but me personally, it makes me excited because it's the very beginning of the world they're trying to build. It has several pieces of concept art and the words that definitely imply it's inspiration by City of Heroes, if not its connection.
I did see this one.
Yeah. You know, you see a couple base figures standing around a museum, and a lot of people would say, that's all they're making? It's the first, like, alpha, for crying out loud. They're still world building. I do like the Phoenix statue they built for the city square.
Oh yeah, that was kind of cool.
It's not exactly... Although it does kind of break up everything. You remember how City of Heroes, you know, you could stand underneath Atlas. It didn't break up the square. That one would actually break it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then it shows you the kind of buildings they're putting together, and these look like they're going to be really detailed structures. I did like that they showed you the night and day difference real quickly there. I think they're well on their way. Although I think to help their case, they should really build a couple detailed characters.
Yeah.
And that would actually help us see what we're going to look at as a day-to-day, because buildings are not what we're going to be staring at most of the time. They're going to be what we're zooming by. You know, I need to see some character models. Who knows? Maybe they have one or two they can show us. Maybe. Yeah. But they also released this to coincide with the 10th anniversary of City of Heroes, which is, 4 years dead now?
Has it been that long? Damn.
I'm not sure. I know it's been at least 3. I want to say it's been closer to 4 since the game's been gone. Final hours of City of Heroes, December 4th, 2012. Oh, so it hasn't been that long. Well, let's see. I found a story here about the day it closed. It was written in 2012.
Last day, November 30th, 2012.
Okay. So it hasn't been that long. I was wrong. Maybe it just seems that much longer because I stopped paying for the game about 3 years prior to that. It's not that I fell out of love with the game, but the community of players we had at that time really collapsed. You know what I mean? Well, that and I had multiple kids running around the house, so I didn't really have the attention span to sit down for a few hours. But I do have City of Titans as part of my Kickstarter project, so I'll be getting the game before it comes out. I look forward to that.
As am I.
Yeah. All right, I think that's about it. So next week we have to talk to the City of Titans people about how they're going.
And we can nerd out on that.
Really looking. Oh hell yeah! It's going to be a hard conversation to stay focused in, because I'm sure things like Forever Evil and Original Sin are going to come up in conversation. All right. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. I invite you to roll with us again next week. Have a great one. I am Jeremy. Have a good one.
Oh man.
Almost feels like we're being abandoned, doesn't it?
Yeah, like they're dropping like flies.
Yeah, all of a sudden there's only 2 of us in the Batcave, and we're pushing over the giant penny.
I'm not Robin.